Zhu Xinjue appeared in this place alone, and when he saw people, he seemed very excited. But when he realized it was Xiang Beifei, he was stunned for a moment, his gaze flickering non-stop. Enemies often cross each other's paths. Zhu Xinjue looked at Xiang Beifei, feeling another surge of killing intent, but he still managed to conceal it. He still doesn't know my identity, which means I haven't exposed myself. There's no need to worry. Zhu Xinjue's mind raced as he pondered the current situation. We had just planned to kill him, but we didn't succeed, so he probably doesn't know what happened in the abyss. He doesn't recognize me. I can start by building a good relationship with him, and then, currently Zhu Xinjue was Zhu Pengfei from Yenzhou University, with an UR-level disguise. He didn't believe Xiang Beifei could see through him, meaning he could still pretend to fawn over him to gain his trust and then kill him. That's great. Are you guys from Liangzhou University and Yongzhou University? Zhu Xinjue forced a look of elated madness on his face, as if he had encountered a savior. Who are you? Chang Xianan asked. Zhu Pengfei. I am Zhu Pengfei from Yenzhou University. Zhu Xinjue hurriedly replied. Chang Xianan thought for a moment, then nodded slightly. I remember. I have an impression of you. How come you are alone? Where are the others from Yenzhou University? We got separated. Zhu Xinjue replied anxiously. This withered forest is very strange. All of us got separated, and I was the only one who managed to escape to this mountain for refuge. Li Zimu was somewhat wary when he saw Zhu Xinjue, because he remembered clearly that Zhu Xinjue was the one who killed Ho Qingguo. He subtly glanced at Xiang Beifei beside him, then turned his attention to Tang He from Qingzhou University. Tang He didn't say much from the sidelines, even standing behind the others, seemingly not wanting to be noticed by Zhu Xinjue. The reason was simple. They had all just teamed up to deal with Xiang Beifei, so now it wasn't the time to step forward and say anything. He knew that Zhu Xinjue was a high-level meridian opening master, while he himself was only in the late stages of qi controlling, quite inconspicuous among this group, and he sincerely hoped that Zhu Xinjue hadn't noticed him. Xiang Beifei looked at Zhu Xinjue. This guy sure knew how to act, even managing to stay so calm and collected. He asked indifferently, When did you come in? Last night. I got trapped in this withered forest since last night. Been taking refuge ever since. Zhu Xinjue quickly said. Last night? You came last night. Yes, last night our Yenzhou University encountered a group of bizarre people attacking us. Then we were scattered, and I alone fled to the mountain. Were you also attacked by those tree men? Zhu Xinjue asked. That's correct. Chang Xianan didn't know about Zhu Xinjue's past events, but recognized him as a person from Yenzhou University. You said you came here last night, that means earlier than us. When we arrived, the tree men were all fine. So, what's with the darkness here? Xiang Beifei continued to inquire. I don't know, but what I can confirm is that every 6 hours here, it will become dark on time, and then it will lighten up again after 6 hours. Every time it gets light, those tree men will find a spot and wither again. But once it gets dark, they come to life. Zhu Xinjue, in order to gain Xiang Beifei's trust, spoke sincerely. After pausing, he added, Those tree men don't dare to come up the mountain. There are many mountains here, and I've traversed quite a few. At first, I was chased by tree men for a long time and nearly perished. Later, I discovered the pattern. Run for 6 hours, then hide on a mountain, and wait for daylight before moving on. I was just here preparing to rest when you arrived, so that's why I was on guard. I didn't mean to go against you. I'm sorry. Zhu Xinjue said with a look of apology on his face. His demeanor was so genuine, portraying himself as an unfortunate innocent person, that except for Xiang Beifei, Li Zimu, and Tang He, none of the others who were uninformed would suspect him. Can I follow you guys? I'm really out of options. I can be helpful and won't hold you back. Strength in numbers. I just want to leave this place. Even the forfeit talisman doesn't work here now, Zhu Xinjue said urgently. Everyone turned their eyes to Xiang Beifei, as it was only him they were currently listening to. Xiang Beifei looked at Zhu Xinjue's interface, pondering for a moment. Of course you can, he said. A surge of joy arose in Zhu Xinjue's heart. He really doesn't recognize me. It seems he trusts me now. Are you guys also wanting to see where these streams flow to? The streams here flow towards the mountaintop. We've been there. It's just a place where springs congregate. Nothing special, just a volcanic crater. Let me take you there to see. However, before Zhu Xinjue could finish, Xiang Beifei threw a punch directly at him. Bang! Zhu Xinjue seemed to have been on guard all along, and when Xiang Beifei's punch came, he blocked it and quickly retreated. Xiang Beifei, what are you doing? Zhu Xinjue shouted. Find more chapters on. Others also looked at Xiang Beifei with confusion, equally stunned by his sudden attack. What the hell are you planning? Xiang Beifei stared intently at the forest ahead, where the stream disappeared at its end. Xiang Beifei, don't go too far. I kindly came to warn you. Why did you attack me? Zhu Xinjue shouted angrily. You said you were here alone, but just now you spoke of you guys having been here. You're not alone. Xiang Beifei fixated his gaze on Zhu Xinjue, a hint of murderous intent gradually appearing in his eyes. He saw clearly that Zhu Xinjue's system interface displayed. New task. Trade with Shi Renmei. Using the Withered Forest as a model to create a new system world. Learn the functional rules of the Withered Forest to incorporate its world into your abilities. Trade details. You will provide Shi Renmei with 10 newcomers. Shi Renmei will in turn inform you of the Withered Forest's functional rules. Current trade agreement is finalized. The other party is bound, and neither can renounce without suffering backlash. Current trade progress. 4 out of 10. Zhu Xinjue's system is named SR Grade World Control System, and his usual method of growing stronger involves adventuring through the various worlds created by the system. Once he passes them, he can control the rules of that world. For instance, after he cleared the space created by the system for the isolated island cruise, he could set the rules for that world and make couples kill each other in accordance with those rules to survive. However, his system not only allowed Zhu Xinjue to clear worlds, but also permitted him to incorporate real worlds he encountered into the system. This withered forest was very peculiar, possessing some very strange capabilities. It seemed as though Zhu Xinjue's system planned to replicate this withered forest and write it into its system world. That is to say, if Zhu Xinjue figured out the secrets of this withered forest, then the world control system would create a system world named Withered Forest, which Zhu Xinjue could use to bring others into Withered Forest next time. Just like the isolated island cruise world Zhu Xinjue created before, he could leverage the characteristics of isolated island cruise to deal with others, compelling everyone to follow his will in his world. If Zhu Xinjue replicated the Withered Forest, then whenever he encountered an adversary, he could also capture them in the Withered Forest and use its features to deal with them. And now, Zhu Xinjue's system showed that he engaged in a trade with Shi Renmei. Clearly, Shi Renmei must know the secret of this withered forest and probably found Zhu Xinjue to strike an agreement. Zhu Xinjue's task was to capture people, and then Shi Renmei would reveal the secret of this withered forest to him. Xiang Beifei observed the information displayed on Zhu Xinjue's system, provided individuals list SR Grade Awakener Feng Mao, SR Grade Awakener Xie Lixing, SR Awakener Lin Fan, SR Grade Awakener Lu Ling. Xiang Beifei remembered these 4 individuals. Xie Lixing, who came from Jizhou University, awoke with the dynamic system. Lin Fan from Yangzhou University had the power of a lightning system, and Feng Mao and Lu Ling were actually both from his own Yenzhou University. Was he betraying his own team members for the sake of his system's abilities? Xiang Beifei, we have no grudges. Why did you attack me? Now that we're both in the same predicament, shouldn't we cooperate first? Zhu Xinjue still tried to maintain a semblance of composure as he shouted. I don't cooperate with dead people, Xiang Beifei retorted coldly. Zhu Xinjue, also wary of Xiang Beifei, immediately turned to Chang Exinen and said, Chang Exinen, with Liangzhou University acting so outrageously, aren't you, people from Yongzhou University, going to speak up for me? However, Chang Exinen watched Zhu Xinjue cautiously and said, There's something off about you. Righteousness value assessment of Zhu Xinjue's current actions. Negative. When Zhu Xinjue suggested leading them to the spring, his vast righteous qi system immediately judged Zhu Xinjue's actions as negative. Seeing Xiang Beifei's assault on Zhu Xinjue, Chang Xianen immediately sided with Xiang Beifei. Be careful. This person has bad intentions. There must be a catch upstream. Chang Xianen warned his team. Di Shang and others quickly realized the situation. Of course, they trusted their captain's judgment. Having Chang Xianen as an inner SSR, his judgments were almost never wrong. So they all looked at Zhu Xinjue with heightened vigilance. Long Guocheng and his group were no different, all regarding Zhu Xinjue with hostility. Zhu Xinjue was taken aback to see how cautious these people were. He hadn't expected his deception to fail with this group, but he quickly sneered and said, "Heh, sniffed me out. Have you? Well, it doesn't matter anymore." Gauging the number of people, he then began to laugh. 11 people, that should complete my task now. He snapped his fingers. Pop! Suddenly, a ripple emerged in his hand, rapidly spreading up into the air, emitting a howling noise. Xiang Beifei frowned slightly and called out, "Retreat!" Whoosh! 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 It was as if Zhu Xinjue had signaled something, and instantly countless whooshing sounds appeared from the forest. These sounds quickly sprang up, followed by a number of human figures with extremely miserable appearances surrounding them. They were indeed the ghostly visage with ghost whiskers. Xiang Beifei's expression was grave. He had no idea how these ghostly visage with ghost whiskers had appeared. Since the moment they had arrived, he had not detected their presence, not even a trace of their aura. However, at Zhu Xinjue's snap of the fingers, the ghostly visage with ghost whiskers suddenly appeared, quite abruptly. It was as if they had materialized out of nowhere at Zhu Xinjue's signal. What made Xiang Beifei even more wary was an extremely powerful aura that slowly emerged from the forest. "Xinjue, your efficiency is truly impressive." Shi Renmei, with her slim waist twisted, slowly appeared before them. Upon her arrival, Tang He's face drastically changed as he exclaimed in horror, "It's her! It's her! She is Shi Renmei. Oh, so you know me too. What a pleasure." Shi Renmei winked at Tang He, then shifted her gaze back to Xiang Beifei. "We've finally met." Her eyes were filled with curiosity when she looked at Xiang Beifei, mixed with a strange excitement, even fervor, as if she had seen some rare treasure. Xiang Beifei stared intently at Shi Renmei. This woman had no system interface above her head and showed none of the characteristics of the ghostly visage with ghost whiskers, appearing as a completely normal woman, elegant and composed in demeanor, indistinguishable from a real person. Had the ghostly visage with ghost whiskers' ability to disguise become so advanced? Zhu Xinjue said, "I've brought the people to you, so is our deal complete now?" "Not yet. Our deal was to capture the people, and they are not in our hands yet, are they?" Shi Renmei spoke with a smile. "With your ability, can't you capture these people?" Zhu Xinjue asked. "If I could so easily capture them, why would I make a deal with you?" Shi Renmei said with a smile. "Rest assured, once you capture them, I will keep my promise, let you leave this place, and then tell you the secret of this withered forest." "Good." Zhu Xinjue was invigorated, aware of Shi Renmei's prowess. She was definitely far more formidable than Ho Chenggu and Shan Baiwen. With Shi Renmei present, defeating Xiang Beifei would be more than possible. The other ghostly visage with ghost whiskers didn't make a move. They were all waiting for Shi Renmei's command, and she clearly didn't intend to act directly right away. She wanted Zhu Xinjue to test Xiang Beifei while she enjoyed the show. As for Chang Xianen and others, she saw them as sitting ducks. Trapped on the mountain with tree people surrounding them from outside, where could they run to? Is Zhu Pengfei human? Or has he already been parasitized by a ghostly visage with ghost whiskers? Chang Xianen asked Xiang Beifei in a low voice, looking at Zhu Xinjue. Having heard from Tang He that Shi Renmei was a desolate beast, and seeing Zhu Xinjue walking alongside her, his first thought was whether Zhu Pengfei had been killed by a ghostly visage with ghost whiskers and subsequently possessed by them, becoming another Shi Renmei. "He's a beast," said Xiang Beifei calmly. Find exclusive stories on. Chung Xianan was slightly taken aback. Seeking death. Zhu Xinjue took a step forward, and a ripple emerged under his feet as the power of space quickly enveloped Xiang Beifei. In reality, any spatial type ability was invalid here, for Shi Renmei had locked down the space, and Zhu Xinjue's controlling the world system belonged to the spatial type, ineffective in the withered forest. The problem was, Zhu Xinjue's system space had been improved by his grandfather, meaning that even though he couldn't leave the withered forest using the forfeit talisman, he was still able to use his system abilities. The power of the controlling the world system spread quickly, and soon enveloped Xiang Beifei in front of him. Xiaohe clutched tightly at Xiang Beifei's clothes, staring at the space fluctuation. However, Xiang Beifei didn't let Xiaohe block it. Whoosh! The scenery shifted in a whirl, and Beifei found himself amidst an icy, snowy world. It was unmistakably the world of Lonely Island. Shi Renmei also leisurely stepped into Zhu Xinjue's space. Although he had a special UR trump card, he still needed Shi Renmei's assistance, just in case. I've wanted to meet you alone for a long time. You probably don't recognize me, but do you remember this place? Hate filled Zhu Xinjue's eyes, the humiliation of being defeated by Xiang Beifei, who was at the later stages of qi controlling, was the shame of his life, so he was determined to avenge that shame. Xiang Beifei just looked at Zhu Xinjue indifferently. Seeing Xiang Beifei's calmness, Zhu Xinjue's face contorted with rage again. Back then, you relied on your spatial jumping ability to deal with me, but today, I want to see how you will use space against me. A blue light burst from him, darting about like glittering golden chains. These chains crisscrossed, merging into every nook of this space, as if they locked everything in this world. Every blade of grass, every flower, every drop of water. He had locked down the essence of everything in this world. This is the UR level Void Seal Lock. Your abilities are of no use in front of me. Zhu Xinjue had great confidence in the UR level system item given by his grandfather. A UR level system was very powerful, one of the top-notch space locking items. The Void Seal Lock and Shi Renmei's space sealing ability were of one type. It could also block any spatial type of teleportation ability, including things like the Forfeit Talisman and the SOS Talisman. He didn't believe that Xiang Beifei could break through UR-level restrictions. This Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword is a UR-level Divine Sword, more than enough to kill you. In Zhu Xinjue's hand appeared once again a sword gleaming with golden light. Before, Zhu Xinjue himself was SR, with powerful strength and talent that needed no worry. So Zhu Yiji didn't provide him with many self-defense items. After Zhu Xinjue was captured, Zhu Yiji gave him this Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword for protection, to prevent the same thing from happening again. And now this sword had become Zhu Xinjue's most powerful reliance. Although the power of any system item that could be exerted was related to the cultivator's own level, because the Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword was a UR-level system item, it was far from ordinary. Therefore, even though Zhu Xinjue's cultivation was only at the early stage of Meridian Opening, he could still wield the strength of the late stage of Meridian Opening. The Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword emitted a powerful fluctuation. The aura of the late Meridian Opening stage enveloped around, shaking the surrounding ice and snow with a buzzing sound, and Zhu Xinjue's presence had steadily surpassed Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei looked at the Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword thoughtfully. Even he had to admit that this sword was extraordinary. You're already a turtle in a jar. Just die obediently. Zhu Xinjue sneered and raised his sword. The piercing sword chi shot up into the sky, reaching 10,000 feet, its brilliance lighting up the whole world. Looking down upon all with extreme terror, the UR-level Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword, in Zhu Xinjue's hands, already wielded such immense power. And if it were in the hands of someone even stronger, it could probably tear a mountain apart with ease. The rules of this world were trembling as if they were all submitting to this sword. The whole world was rapidly shrinking. All the world's rules of Lonely Island were integrated into this sword, which had become the focal point of this world. Buzz! A golden sword beam fiercely plunged down towards Xiang Beifei, his powerful aura firmly locked by Zhu Xinjue. who saw no possibility for Xiang Beifei to dodge other than to take the hit. Zhu Xinjue laughed triumphantly, imagining the scene of Xiang Beifei being cleaved in half by his sword, but he wouldn't shatter Xiang Beifei so easily. He just needed to kill Xiang Beifei in this world, and then Xiang Beifei would become a part of this system world, forever enslaved by him. Zhu Xinjue was staring at Xiang Beifei, thinking Xiang Beifei must be scared out of his wits by now. Xiang Beifei remained calm. He didn't even bother lifting his eyelids. UR-level sword chi. It was formidable, so powerful that it made one tremble. But Xiang Beifei didn't dodge. He just indifferently watched the unrivaled sword chi. He didn't consider such a threat worth his attention. Zhu Xinjue's sword, with the force of thunderclap majesty, struck down on Xiang Beifei. Boom! The violent sword chi swept across, cleaving the ground and causing it to crack open, the whole space incessantly trembling. The ground stones were shattered by this sword chi, with residual energy rippling out, the distant sea roiling and raising towering waves, and diagonal deep trenches emerged from Xiang Beifei's position, extending to the depths of the sea. This sword chi was terrifyingly fearsome. Zhu Xinjue coldly observed Xiang Beifei, who had been hit by his sword chi. Knowing this indefensible sword could not possibly be withstood by Xiang Beifei's capabilities, the dust settled. The whole world was left full of holes and scars. Yet, a figure still stood there, looking unfazed at Zhu Xinjue. UR-level attack. That's it? Xiang Beifei looked up at Zhu Xinjue. Discover hidden content at novel bin. Calm. Zhu Xinjue's pupils contracted sharply as if he had seen something inconceivable. His heartbeat even skipped a half beat. He was still standing? He was completely unscathed? How was that possible? Zhu Xinjue was utterly shocked. He knew that Xiang Beifei had a spatial jump ability specifically to counter his system world, so he had gone through the trouble of obtaining a Void Seal Lock, which was effective against spatial abilities, and a UR-level Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword from his UR-level Awakener grandfather. That was UR-level, after all, the highest echelon of system talents in the world. Such a potent system item should have ensured the lockdown of Xiang Beifei. So why did he still manage to dodge it? How could he possibly evade a UR-level Void Seal Lock? How could he possibly dodge his own Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword? This is impossible. Zhu Xinjue couldn't accept this fact. The Void Seal Lock and the Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword, they actually couldn't restrain Xiang Beifei? This N-level Xiang Beifei, on what basis is he doing this? I thought UR-level items would be somewhat more powerful. Xiang Beifei took a step forward. His speed was incredibly fast, to an unbelievable extent. Zhu Xinjue didn't even know how Xiang Beifei vanished. He only knew that by the time he realized his own neck was being choked. Although Zhu Xinjue was strong, he was only at the early stage of meridian opening. He had forgotten one thing. Xiang Beifei was now also at the early stages of meridian opening. He wasn't even playing by the normal rules of the meridian opening stage. You dare to make deals with any target. Do you even know what she is? Xiang Beifei grabbed Zhu Xinjue's neck with one hand, his powerful spiritual power directly vibrating into Zhu Xinjue's body, suppressing Zhu Xinjue's spiritual power. Zhu Xinjue, terrified, found himself unable to move at all. Last time I could kill you, this time I can do the same. Xiang Beifei lifted Zhu Xinjue by the neck, as if he were picking up a little chick. Dream on. Zhu Xinjue was both shocked and furious, and a strong glow quickly emerged over his body, with tiny dragon scales landing on him, creating a layer of impenetrable dragon scale armor. UR-level defense. Previously, as an SR, Zhu Xinjue's strength was quite formidable, and due to his status as well as being in school, he was basically not likely to encounter any threats to his life. But the foreign wilderness was different. Before coming to Qingzhou, Zhu Xinjue especially went to his grandfather to ask for these things. Understanding the dangers of the foreign wilderness, Zhu Yiji was not stingy and gave Zhu Xinjue many life-saving abilities. These abilities were his real trump cards for his arrogance. Zhu Xinjue, seeing the dragon scale armor emerge over his body, felt much more at ease. The reason being, this dragon scale armor was very strong. He was able to make a deal with Shi Renmei precisely because Shi Renmei couldn't break through this layer of dragon scale armor, and couldn't kill him. That's why Shi Renmei agreed to a deal with him. This was his ultimate trump card. Zhu Xinjue calmed himself and still said fiercely, "Xiang Beifei, you want to kill me? You'll have to ask my bodies." Crack, crack. For fine streaks of cold light appeared on Zhu Xinjue's body, as if 4 parallel blades had swept across, catching on the dragon scale armor. Then, the seemingly impenetrable dragon scale armor shattered like papier-mâché. "Ask what about your body? Eczema?" Xiang Beifei said. "Shattered?" Zhu Xinjue's expression completely froze. His mind went blank all of a sudden. The UR-level dragon scale armor just shattered like that? Shattered? Was the dragon scale armor so fragile? This must be a defective UR-level product. Woof! Xiaohe was proudly holding up one of its little paws, which had 4 sharp blades on it. Zhu Xinjue's once proud UR-level dragon scale armor had been shredded by its paw. Xiaohe lifted its head, coolly blew on its paw as if it were a gunman blowing on a gun barrel after firing, eyes filled with contempt. UR-level defense? Woof woof. Zhu Xinjue was completely panicked. He never expected such an outcome. For this freshman competition, he came fully prepared, with many UR-level items on his person, initially intended to deal with desolate beasts, and later to confront Xiang Beifei. However, 3 powerful items in succession proved ineffective in front of Xiang Beifei. Now, he was restrained by Xiang Beifei and had become a fish on the chopping board. His mouth was dry and his voice was full of false bravery as he said, "Do you dare kill me? My grandfather is a UR level of the Zhuzhou Alliance." With a sudden exertion of force, Xiang Beifei, crack, Zhu Xinjue's neck was forcibly twisted and broken by Xiang Beifei. "I don't know him," Xiang Beifei said simply. Zhu Xinjue's body floated in midair, eyes wide open in death, not understanding till his last breath why Xiang Beifei could block the UR-level system lockout. Why, despite his meticulous plan, was he unable to kill Xiang Beifei? But Xiang Beifei offered no explanation. He did not like to explain his abilities to others. Whoosh! Whoosh! Xiang Beifei once again flicked his wrist, unleashing several fist flames. Spiritual power transformed into a sharp, whistling sound as it rushed past. Zhu Xinjue's body was directly chopped into several pieces by his spiritual power. With a splash, Zhu Xinjue's body burst into flames. Woof! Xiaohe barked triumphantly. The Golden Meteor Holy Light Sword and the Void Seal Lock, 2 UR-level system items, were snatched by it without hesitation. The levels of these 2 items, which Zhu Yiji provided to be used by Zhu Xinjue, who was just at the meridian opening phase, weren't too high, equivalent only to the items meant for the later stages of meridian opening. Unfortunately, the dragon scale armor was crushed by Xiaohe. If it couldn't withstand Xiaohe's claws, it meant the armor was broken beyond repair. However, having 2 system items from the later stages of meridian opening was enough, both of them spiritual power crystals. Crackling noises. Upon Zhu Xinjue's death, the system world once again collapsed, and Xiang Beifei reappeared on the desolate hill in the withered forest. He looked toward Shi Renmei. Zhu Xinjue had thought that Shi Renmei would assist him, but from start to finish, she never made a move. During the fight between Xiang Beifei and Zhu Xinjue, she didn't intervene, simply leaning against a tree trunk and watching the drama unfold. Tsk, tsk, tsk. Impressive. The information left by the wailing child before he died was completely accurate, Shi Renmei said, unable to resist clapping her hands in admiration. Even she would have had trouble killing Zhu Xinjue outright, considering the strength of the UR-level dragon scale armor, especially within his system space, which was akin to adding wings to a tiger. Yet, she did not expect Xiang Beifei to resolve the situation directly. Zhu Xinjue's death was neither painful nor itchy to her, merely an insignificant human. His death meant little. It was just one problem less for her to deal with. This person had no idea she was a desolate beast and had casually struck a deal with her in a few words. Zhu Xinjue believed that he could establish a valid trade using the system's capabilities, but in truth, such system transactions did not bind Shi Renmei at all, because she was not human at all. When Chang Xiaonan and the others saw Xiang Beifei and Shi Renmei reappear on the hilltop, with Zhu Xinjue nowhere in sight, they immediately asked, "Where is Zhu Pengfei?" They had been warily watching the surroundings and those people with miserable appearances. But since those people did not act and were waiting, they could only wait as well. "He is not Zhu Pengfei." Xiang Beifei spoke ambiguously, not admitting to having killed anyone, leaving himself some room for maneuver. Li Zimu glanced at Xiang Beifei, grasping his intention, and quickly said, "That person was probably a ghostly visage. Killing someone was a tricky matter and could provoke conflict between two schools. With Chang Xianan's team from Yongzhou University present, even if justified, the aftermath could bring complications." Li Zimu was well aware of these matters, so he immediately led Chang Xianan to associate Zhu Pengfei with the ghostly visage. If you justify killing a person, it matters, but killing a ghostly visage is inconsequential. Understood. Chang Xianan and the others nodded slightly and once again watched Shi Renmei with caution. Xiang Beifei kept a close watch on Shi Renmei. This ghostly visage spoke so clearly and was almost no different from a human, to the point that she could no longer be called a desolate beast. It seemed more appropriate to label her as a demon. Shi Renmei's lack of immediate action meant she was not afraid that Xiang Beifei and his group would try to escape. "So, will you surrender and come with us? Or shall I capture you and take you to the spring at the mountaintop?" Shi Renmei asked with a smile. Swish! Without saying another word, Xiang Beifei ignited into flames and charged at Shi Renmei. Boom! He threw a punch, and the exploding flames roared in the air, turning into a series of fireballs that bombarded the spot where Shi Renmei stood. Whoosh! Shi Renmei's body was like a light leaf, nimbly dodging Xiang Beifei's fist flame without confronting the blaze head-on. "It seems you've decided to make your move." Shi Renmei landed on the treetops, stuck out her tongue to lick her finger, and then snapped her fingers. The ghost whiskers of remnant visage in the woods immediately sprang into action, surging towards Chang Xianan and the others. Whoosh! 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 Countless tendrils surged towards them like an overwhelming flood. Chang Xianan and his companions did not dare to take this lightly. The mass attack of so many ghost whiskers of remnant visage, each possessing the strength of the meridian opening phase, posed a great threat to them. Be careful! They quickly began to counter the onslaught of tendrils. These whiskers were very powerful and densely packed, making them impossible to annihilate completely. Long Guoqing and Li Zimu had already seen their strength, while those from Yongzhou University, like Chang Xianan, were seeing them for the first time. However, thanks to the lesson learned from the tree people, they were not too panicked. A righteous and awe-inspiring white light once again shone from Chang Xianan, transforming into ripples that surged forward. This time his ability was effective, his powerful righteousness covering the incoming tendrils, which suddenly became very fragile as if frozen in mid-air. Whiz! Whiz! He swept out strands of spiritual power, shattering the tendrils. Chang Xianan's righteousness value could suppress desolate beasts. In the system's judgment, most desolate beasts did not possess any righteousness value, and it was considered a negative. The lower the righteousness value, the more powerful the damage caused by his attacks. Clearly, the ghost whiskers were not like the tree people. They could be harmed by his righteousness value. Boom! 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 The battle erupted instantly, everyone exerting their full strength, no longer holding back, showcasing their most potent abilities. The entire forest lit up with numerous powerful attacks. These attacks intertwined, sending out a plethora of lights, illuminating the whole forest. The tentacles of the ghost whiskers were not very strong, and they could be cut by everyone, but the problem was their abundance. As soon as some were destroyed, various new ones grew back, making it impossible to annihilate them completely. Xiang Beifei's fist flame targeted Shi Renmei, who was clearly the most formidable of the group. He had to deal with this individual first. As the flames approached, Shi Renmei extended a finger, from which tendrils erupted to meet Xiang Beifei's fist flame. Whoosh! As Xiang Beifei's flames touched those tendrils, they immediately caught fire, spreading rapidly. Shi Renmei furrowed her brow slightly and without hesitation, severed the tendrils that had sprouted from her finger. Indeed, very interesting artifacts. Shi Renmei obviously feared Xiang Beifei's flames, which posed a great threat to her, seemingly a natural bane to the ghost whiskers, so much so that even she could not cope with them. The ghost whiskers seemed even more concerned about Xiang Beifei's flames than other desolate beasts. Their tentacles were agile but sensitive, capable of blocking ordinary flames but not daring to block Xiang Beifei's. Ordinary desolate beasts merely feared Xiang Beifei's fist flame but could still somewhat withstand it. For instance, the triangular thunderkite with its tough scale armor could block Xiang Beifei's flames. However, the ghost whiskers instinctively dreaded his flames and had no way to block them. Continue reading at. Our target wasn't originally you, but catching you turns out to be an unexpected boon from this operation. It should be much better than capturing those higher-level awakeners, Shi Renmei said with a smile. Boom! Xiang Beifei's figure flashed as he closed in once more, landing a punch on Shi Renmei. She spread tendrils from under her feet to block Xiang Beifei, but he burned right through them. From the breath soil in Xiang Beifei's hand, a large saber condensed and he swung it at Shi Renmei. She immediately leaped up, dodging Xiang Beifei's attack, but mid-flight, Beifei's breath soil dispersed, transforming into a cloud of sand that covered the ghost whiskers assaulting Shi Qiao on the left. The sand quickly covered the tendrils of the ghost whiskers, and the residual spiritual power in the sand ignited instantaneously. Whoosh! The flames engulfed the ghostly visage, which let out a piercing scream and was quickly reduced to a pile of ashes. Shi Renmei frowned slightly, not expecting Xiang Beifei to take out one of her companions so easily. I must admit, your spiritual power is quite strange and seems to counter us. But Shi Renmei landed by the stream, plucked a branch from a nearby tree, dipped it in the stream, and prepared for Xiang Beifei's incoming fist flame. Whiz! The branch in Shi Renmei's hand emitted a sharp whistling sound as the water-soaked twig met Xiang Beifei's explosive fist flame. The branch was just a normal twig, and the stream water was just ordinary water. But in Shi Renmei's hands, the twig struck Xiang Beifei's flame like a venomous snake. Whoosh! Xiang Beifei's flames were instantly scattered in the air. The branch continued towards Xiang Beifei, disregarding his flames and even completely devouring them. Xiang Beifei swiftly dodged the branch and landed on a rock. He furrowed his brow, eyeing the stream. Shi Renmei laughed. I knew it. The spring water from the withered forest can counter your spiritual power. The ghost mustache of remnant visage was actually not afraid of flames. They only feared the flames produced by Xiang Beifei. To be more precise, it seemed like they were afraid of Xiang Beifei's spiritual power. However, the tree ants in this withered forest were strange. They seemed to be able to absorb spiritual power, rendering all skill-based attacks useless against them. Even the flames of Xiang Beifei could be devoured by them. This time, even the branches stained with stream water seemed to have gained the ability to devour his spiritual power. What is the relationship between these streams and the tree ants? Now, your biggest reliance has been taken away. Shi Renmei, through the remnants of the ghost mustache burnt by Xiang Beifei's flames, understood the uniqueness of Xiang Beifei and attempted to deal with him using the stream water from the withered forest. As expected, her idea was correct. Shi Renmei chuckled lightly, immediately charging at Xiang Beifei with the water-soaked branch in her hand. Whoosh! Xiang Beifei punched again, but when his fist struck the branch, it was met with an absorbing force that quickly devoured his spiritual power, instantly extinguishing his flames. Meanwhile, the branch in Shi Renmei's hand, carrying a formidable force, whipped towards Xiang Beifei. Her speed was very fast, even several degrees faster than Xiang Beifei. He had hardly reacted when the branch hit his arm. A nimble force immediately surged on Xiang Beifei's body. Professor Guo's defense skills, Counterblade. He intended to counter the force from the branch, but a bizarre absorbing force emerged again from the branch, swallowing up the counterblade power that had just risen in Xiang Beifei. Counterblade utilized spiritual power to turn the force into one's own, repelling the opponent's attack back at them. Its essence was still spiritual power. Bang! Xiang Beifei staggered back, crashing into a tree, knocking it down. The once green tree withered instantly upon impact, with broken branches and fallen leaves scattering all around. He got up, looked at his arm, a scorching scar remained. Without the protection of spiritual power, even his sturdy body suffered from the blow. Shi Renmei's strength was exceedingly fierce. Judging from the aura she exuded and the speed of her attacks, this creature was at the level of a desolate beast in the later stages of meridian opening. Desolate beasts of the later meridian opening stage were very powerful. When Xiang Beifei followed Elder Luo on a training expedition last time, he was chased all over by such a beast. Even though he could see the beast's weaknesses, he was frustrated by the inability to break through its defenses. Shi Renmei was even more fierce than those desolate beasts. With Xiang Beifei's only advantage over her nullified, she had nothing to fear. Do desolate beasts also practice cultivation? Xiang Beifei pondered to himself. In his memory, the cultivation levels of desolate beasts actually had a ceiling. That is to say, a desolate beast, once mature, would remain at whatever cultivation level it had reached. Take the triangular thunderkite, for instance. They might not be formidable when born, but once they mature, they would naturally grow to the later stages of chi controlling, unable to further advance. Only through encountering fortuitous opportunities leading to mutations could they potentially break through to the meridian opening phase. However, such mutations were rare, with only a select few special desolate beasts possibly undergoing such transformations. And the ghostly visages around here varied in strength. The crybaby they encountered in the city of the old days was only at the early meridian opening stage, not very strong, but the ghost mustaches here were different. Judging by the aura of their attacks, some tentacles were close to rivaling the middle stage of meridian opening, and the power displayed by Shi Renmei's attacks was a massive leap above that of the other ghost mustaches, exuding the terrifying presence only possessed by desolate beasts in the later stages of meridian opening. Does this imply that intelligent desolate beasts could also break through their own limits by cultivating? At that moment, Shi Renmei charged over again, the branch whistling through the air and slashing towards Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei, having been at a disadvantage from the first hit, immediately leapt backward. Whiz! Whiz! With shrill cries emanating through the air, Shi Renmei's attacks came swiftly, hardly giving Xiang Beifei a moment's rest. The branch, in her grasp, was like a nimble serpent, relentlessly tearing at Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei recollected the burning breath soil. It transformed into a powerful force striking directly at the branch. Crack! The branch was instantly shattered by his formidable force. Eh? Xiang Beifei was somewhat surprised. Was this section of the branch actually so fragile? Shi Renmei had not protected this section of the branch with her demonic power. If it had been him and he wanted to use a branch as a weapon, he would also need to consider the branch's capacity to endure. The first thing he would do, then, would be to cover the branch with spiritual power, enhancing its hardness so that it wouldn't be so easily broken by an enemy's slash. Shi Renmei was a desolate beast, emanating a strange and formidable demonic power, but as an intelligent beast, she should also understand that the branch could easily break, unlikely to be unaware of the need to cover the branch with demonic power. In an instant, Xiang Beifei understood the reason. Unless, this creature also fears that water. That is to say, the stream was extremely strange. Not only could it devour his spiritual power, but it could also devour Shi Renmei's demonic power. This was why Shi Renmei hadn't used her late-stage meridian opening demonic power to protect the branches. And the branches, lacking the enhancement of spiritual power and demonic power, were still just ordinary branches, extremely fragile, just like those treemen who could be chopped into firewood by powerful force. At this moment, numerous tentacles had emerged from Shi Renmei's back, each tentacle breaking off a branch, then coiling around the end of the branch, dipping the front of the branch in the stream, and then all aiming at Xiang Beifei. This guy seemed to care a lot about his appearance. Even though he fought with his tentacles, he still looked like a normal person in the front, as if he was reluctant to destroy his frontal skin. At this moment, Shi Renmei looked like a bizarre fox monster with numerous tails, each tail mixed with countless branches. Extremely odd. Whiz, whiz, whiz. Numerous branches flashed through the air, emitting shrill whistling sounds, lashing towards Xiang Beifei from all directions. Xiang Beifei held his breath and focused on these branches, his body rapidly dodging, while in his hand the breath soil transformed into a series of sharp long blades. Breath soil was special. Although he nurtured it with spiritual power every day, it was not a system item, nor was its soil condensed from spiritual power, so it wasn't afraid of the stream's devouring. Therefore it was more than enough to cut off these branches. Crack, crack. The sharp blades made from breath soil swiftly sliced through the air, leaving behind trails of yellow afterimages, chopping all the branches into pieces. But Shi Renmei's speed and strength were both superior to Xiang Beifei's. She had countless tentacles. If one coiled branch was cut off, she immediately coiled up another one to dip in the stream. The forest here was full of branches, so there was never a shortage. Even though Xiang Beifei dodged quickly, he still got hit quite a few times. This way of passively taking hits won't do. Xiang Beifei chopped off the oncoming branches in front of him, tilted his body, and turned his gaze towards the stream. He immediately rushed towards it. The stream water was very peculiar. Even spiritual power that fell on it would be devoured. So Xiang Beifei didn't dare to touch the water with his hands directly. However, his breath soil could change into various shapes and wasn't afraid of the water, which meant that the breath soil could be used to scoop water. Swoosh! The breath soil fell into the water, instantly becoming a big ladle, which then quickly closed up. It scooped up the water. Xiang Beifei crossed over the stream, hovered in the air, and then splashed the water from the breath soil directly out. Splash! Shi Renmei was coiling branches to meet him when she didn't expect Xiang Beifei to pull such a move. With too many tentacles to dodge, she got splashed squarely with the stream water. Ah! Shi Renmei's face lost its color as the tentacles touched by the stream water quickly emitted puffs of smoke. The water was like some strong corrosive substance, corroding large holes into her tentacles. She quickly retracted the corroded tentacles, looking at Xiang Beifei in shock and anger. I should have thought of this earlier. If the stream water doesn't affect you, why wouldn't you roll in it? Xiang Beifei said. The ghost whisker's tentacles were easily ignited by Xiang Beifei's flames. But since the stream water here could suppress Xiang Beifei's flames, it would make sense for Shi Renmei to take a dip in the stream earlier, soaking her tentacles first, and then they would no longer fear Xiang Beifei's flames. But she only picked up a branch to dip in the water to deal with Xiang Beifei's flames. Shi Renmei had thought of this, but she also dared not touch the stream water. Xiang Beifei once again stretched the ladle made of breath soil into the stream, scooped up a large ladle of water, and then calmly asked, "Ever heard of the Water Splashing Festival? Enjoy new tales from." Splash! He splashed the stream water at Shi Renmei. Because he couldn't use spiritual power, he had no way to control the direction of the splashes. But as long as the force of the splash was strong enough, the water would disperse into fine mist, moving at high speed and covering a wide area. Damn it! Shi Renmei saw the sudden spray of mist flying towards her, and her complexion drastically changed, quickly retracting her tentacles. But she had deployed too many tentacles and still hadn't completely dodged. One segment of tentacles got too drenched with stream water and was directly corroded through. Looking very annoyed, Shi Renmei immediately severed that segment of tentacle, and her tentacles quickly grew back out. She finally dared not be negligent any longer since the current situation seemed more like shooting herself in the foot. Shi Renmei had previously collected quite a bit of information on Xiang Beifei, knowing that his flames were difficult to deal with, so she planned to use the stream water here against him. At first, it had indeed worked out very well, but she hadn't anticipated that Xiang Beifei would catch on to this and also directly use the stream water against her. Especially considering that Xiang Beifei's peculiar breath soil wouldn't be devoured by the stream water. Instead, it could become a large ladle. A ladle scooping water was much more efficient than using branches to dip water, resulting in a significantly larger quantity. Let me think, what's the structure of a gun? Xiang Beifei recalled the system of Lu Jiwei. Lu Jiwei awakened the super police system, a firearm expert, who once taught him about firearms knowledge. Learned by analogy quickly made him aware of the structure of various firearms, including water guns. Whoosh! The breath soil rapidly transformed, turning into a large water gun. The end of the gun morphed, turning into a large cauldron which sank into the stream. Then it closed up again, enveloping the stream water and directly converting into a big bag of water. Xiang Beifei held the breath soil gun in his arms, aimed it at Shi Renmei, and asked with utmost seriousness, "How about a water fight?" Hiss! 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 The water gun immediately shot out powerful streams of water, which dispersed into droplets in midair. These droplets sprayed furiously towards Shi Renmei. Xiang Beifei had learned by analogy from all firearms knowledge, very clear on how to modify the water gun to maximize its power. And with breath soil that could become whatever he wished, armed with a stormwater gun, he turned it into a lethal weapon, leaving Shi Renmei totally stunned. She had never imagined that someone would actually use the stream water here for a water fight. Are human thought processes always this novel? Compared to Xiang Beifei's showy operations, her own act of dipping branches in water seemed utterly naive as a blank sheet of paper. However, Shi Renmei couldn't afford to say anything. With the water droplets spraying over, she had to dodge them hastily. This breath soil water gun posed a huge threat to her. Swish! Shi Renmei retracted her tentacles and leaped out nimbly. Originally, with many tentacles it was convenient to hit people, but with Xiang Beifei armed with the water gun, sweeping over a large area, the tentacles were simply foolish targets. She had to retract them quickly, or risk being amputated. Xiang Beifei turned his head and saw Li Zimu surrounded by several tentacled beasts. He turned back and shot, directly spraying the once high and mighty ghost mustache of remnant visage to wail and howl. Or perhaps it was the body that the ghost mustache had parasitized on that began to wail and howl before dying. He thought both possibilities were likely. That ghost mustache was hit straight on by the stream water, its entire body trembling with pain. It turned its head in anger, and Xiang Beifei noticed a large hole in its heart. Before this person died, they must have been clawed in the heart by a desolate beast. The gaping wound in the heart was a horrific sight. But with a single shot from Xiang Beifei, the stream water penetrated its chest. The ghost mustache hadn't expected Xiang Beifei to shoot like that. It frantically covered its own chest, as tentacles immediately flooded out of the hole in its heart, seemingly trying to escape the body that had been contaminated by the stream water. But Xiang Beifei shot 2 more times, and white smoke rose from the tentacles, which then turned into ashes. Another ghost mustache had been destroyed. This water gun. Li Zimu turned his head to see Xiang Beifei holding a gun and helping him escape from danger, pausing in astonishment. "Don't let your guard down," Xiang Beifei said without explanation. He charged at another ghost mustache, intending to take this one down as well. But just as he fired the water gun, a tree on the ground was suddenly uprooted, its lush canopy instantly blocking him, stopping all the water. Xiang Beifei thought it was the tree man returning, ready to throw a punch when he carefully realized it was Shi Renmei who, using her tentacles, had forcibly uprooted a tree to block him. This tree with lush branches and leaves was like a huge umbrella, easily blocking Xiang Beifei's water gun. "Don't think you can deal with me just like that," Shi Renmei said as she used the tree as an umbrella in front, since the leaves were covered in stream water, allowing her to also wield the large tree against Xiang Beifei. Whoosh! Whoosh! The large branches swept over rustlingly, at extremely tricky angles. She followed Xiang Beifei's example, whipping the tree hard, throwing the water from the tree canopy at Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei didn't dare to directly face this water. The stream water could devour his spiritual power. If he was thoroughly drenched, all his spiritual power would likely be devoured, leaving him as a powerless muggle. Learning quite fast, Xiang Beifei couldn't help but think. Both sides were wary of the stream water. It was a back-and-forth battle where superior skill depended on movement and tactics. The other ghostly visages began to learn from Shi Renmei's method, prepared to uproot trees to drench these humans first. The situation worsened for everyone else because Xiang Beifei currently didn't have enough breath soil to cultivate and couldn't distribute water guns to others. Besides, Li Zimu and the others had no way to control breath soil. He had thought about creating a water grenade, but considering that the stream water could harm not just the ghost whiskers but their own people as well, amounting to indiscriminate attacks, he gave up on that idea. Then just go all out with firepower like Lu Jiwei. Xiang Beifei quickly thought of another method. He spun his breath soil water gun, which made various click-click sounds as it transformed into a large pineapple machine gun. Since Shi Renmei had employed the tree canopy for defense, ordinary water guns placed against the foliage were ineffective, so Xiang Beifei reconfigured the breath soil machine gun, turning a small handful of breath soil mud into hard bullets, each enveloping stream water within. Then, using his spiritual power, he fired the bullets wrapped in stream water. Since the stream water didn't make direct contact with spiritual power, using it in this manner didn't get devoured by the stream water. Explore stories on Rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat. Xiang Beifei pulled the trigger, and the breath soil big pineapple brand machine gun fired wildly. The modified bullets with immense penetrating power were not inferior to ordinary firearms. Each bullet, encased in a hard breath soil exterior, shot out, shattering the leaves in front of Shi Renmei into flying fragments. The trees couldn't stop the bullets, breaking to pieces directly, the water on them useless. After piercing through the trees and reaching Shi Renmei's front, the bullets would automatically explode, blasting the stream water inside towards her. Damn it! Shi Renmei's face underwent a drastic change. She hadn't anticipated Xiang Beifei pulling off such a bizarre move. This tree is useless now. Xiaohei, go help them. Defend for a moment. I'll join you after I've dealt with this one. Xiang Beifei had to deal with Shi Renmei first, as she was the most troublesome, having already used her tentacles to uproot 3 large trees to attack him, and had even soaked all the trees in the water, leaving the crown of her tree dripping wet. Woof woof! Xiaohei immediately hopped down from Xiang Beifei's shoulder, grabbed a clump of breath soil that Xiang Beifei had divided off, and dragged the soil to the edge of the creek. Being relatively small, Xiaohei only needed a tiny portion of the breath soil, which it quickly fashioned into a small water gun. This water gun's design was different from Xiang Beifei's, not meant for human use, but specifically crafted for a dog's paws, fitting perfectly in its small digits. Xiaohei was busily glugging water into the gun, but suddenly, its eyes shifted as if struck by an idea, and it carefully extended a paw to lightly touch the creek water, flinching back as soon as it made contact, worried about being corroded by the stream. But it seemed to have discovered something. Its beady eyes suddenly gleamed with excitement. Then with a plop, it leaped into the creek. The water that could erode the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage's body and devour everyone's spiritual power seemed to have no effect on Xiaohei. After splashing around in the water twice, Xiaohei's snowy white coat was drenched, shrinking into a tiny, wrinkled ball. However, after gulping down a few mouthfuls of water, it quickly took up the small water gun and rushed toward the nearest ghostly visage. The ghostly visage was busy dealing with Shiqiao and Ma Ziqian. Shiqiao was speeding up Ma Ziqian, while Ma Ziqian was protecting Shiqiao. Both were in the advanced stage of Qi controlling, and even though they were fast, they were hard-pressed facing the meridian opening stage ghostly visage. At that moment, Xiaohei dashed up to the noseless ghostly visage and began to shake off water droplets from its body. Splurt! 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 Xiaohei shook with all its might, its droplets hurling forth like a splashing showerhead, drenching the ghostly visage completely. Ack! The ghostly visage, having had the upper hand, didn't expect to be suddenly assaulted this way. The water droplets weren't powerful, but to the ghostly visage, they were like tiny steel beads. Striking its tentacles, they pierced right through. The beleaguered ghostly visage curled its tentacles in pain and began to retract them. Seizing the moment, Ma Ziqian, who was paired with Shiqiao, swept his dagger in a swift arc, creating several flashes of cold light in the air and sliced the defenseless ghostly visage into countless segments. He was already an attacker who relied on speed. The ghostly visage could regenerate its tentacles while alive, but after being splashed with the stream's water, things were different. Before it could recover, Ma Ziqian had already thrown all of the severed limbs into the creek. Splash! The ghostly visage fizzled into foam in the water, leaving only its pitiful corpse floating on the surface. Xiaohei then flew to another ghostly visage, which was proudly gaping its torn mouth, cackling strangely as it battled Long Guoqing. Long Guoqing was being forced back, having expended a great deal of spiritual power in this continuous combat. Seeing this, the ghostly visage's gaping, laughing mouth widened even more. Pounce! Xiaohei flew above this wide-mouthed ghostly visage, spat out the creek water it held, and accurately hit the ghostly visage right in its gaping maw. The ghostly visage, not having seen Xiaohei, never expected someone to spit into its mouth. On instinct, it swallowed the water spat out by Xiaohei. Then the ghostly visage suddenly froze. Ah! The ghostly visage cried out in horror and rage, its voice echoing from its throat as it backed away. But soon, it couldn't make a sound anymore. What Xiaohei spat out was creek water, which, once inside the ghostly visage, flowed like aqua regia, corroding from the mouth down to the throat and chest, eating away from top to bottom. The parasitic body of the ghostly visage was eroded by the creek water to form a huge hole. Struggling frantically, it seemed unable to bear it any longer, and its myriad tentacles began to surge out of the host body. It wanted to abandon this body. However, the moment the ghostly visage emerged, Xiaohei, holding its small dirt gun, splurt, 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 splash. Unable to withstand the terrifying droplets, the ghostly visage's tentacles dried up, turned to ash, and dispersed among the trees. It was eradicated by Xiaohei. The situation was at a deadlock, and everyone was being suppressed by Ghost Mustache of Remnant Visage. But as soon as Xiaohei joined the battle, the pressure greatly decreased. However, Xiaohei's gun was relatively small and didn't hold much water. Xiang Beifei's breath soil was not warmed in sufficient quantity yet, and he had used it to deal with the strongest Shi Renmei. Xiaohei couldn't expand the magazine of his small water gun. Xiaohei spat again and managed to kill another ghostly visage. But eliminating them one by one was too slow. Even though Ma Ziqian and Shi Qiao had just, with Xiaohei's help, taken down a ghostly visage, they were quickly surrounded by another one. On another front, Yongzhou University was still under attack by other ghost visages. Chang Xianen was initially able to sweep away these tentacle monsters, but there were simply too many, and they weren't substantially hurt. They kept fighting, and as he needed to protect his team, his SRs all in the late phase of chi controlling, it was really troublesome, requiring someone else's help. This could not go on. Xiaohei's eyes rolled as if it had an idea. It leaped onto the stream and then spat out countless bubbles. These bubbles fell into the water but were not swallowed by the stream. Since they were already very special, the bubbles were no ordinary bubbles. The bubbles quickly enveloped the stream water, turning into bubble water balls. Woof! Xiaohei waved its paw spiritedly. Whoosh! 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 The bubbles wrapped around the stream water darted through the air and flew towards the ghost visages. All the ghost visages couldn't see the bubbles. They didn't even know the bubble water balls were already hanging over their heads. Then Xiaohei woofed with a grin and snapped its fingers. Pop! 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 The stream water bubbles smashed onto the ghost visages, exploding immediately, sending water splashing everywhere. A straightforward operation. To the common eye, it did not seem intimidating at all. However, these unthreatening water bubbles, upon bursting, acted like natural desolate beast bombs. They exploded with such force that the ghost visages were terrified and howled in agony. Everyone couldn't see Xiaohei, so no one thought to defend against it, nor did they know how to. Xiaohei moved through the crowd with its bubbles, deploying various stream water bombs and bombarding the ghost visages wildly. Sizzle! 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 The stream water landed on the ghost visages, corroding their shells and causing them to emit white smoke all over their bodies. The ghost visages wailed in pain, clutching their heads and scurrying away, tentacles continually running out from the parasitized corpses. Then Xiaohei's bubbles acted like the soup of forgetfulness, forcing it down each tentacle monster that crawled out of a corpse. The ghost visages were completely unable to guard against them, for they could only see water falling from the sky, without knowing when it arrived. Ah! Help! Lao Lu, why are you harming me? Beastly serpent, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. I'm sorry, my wife. Mom, I want to go home. The woods echoed with all sorts of last words from the ghost visages, a mix of terror, heroism, and acceptance of death, all kinds. But no matter what the ghost visages said, Xiaohei couldn't care less, dousing them all without discrimination. In just a moment, the ground was littered with heaps of corpses. These bodies were those parasitized by the ghost visages, because Xiaohei had sprinkled the stream water on them, seemingly disrupting the balance of their bodies, making them unsuitable for further parasitism. Give Xiaohei 5 minutes, and the entire forest turned quiet. Everyone was stunned, watching everything unfold. The tentacle monsters that were aggressively attacking suddenly were hit by water bubbles from nowhere and wiped out. They had thought this would be a fierce fight, possibly lasting several hours, even prepared to fight to the death with the desolate beasts. However, nobody expected the fight to end so suddenly. From the moment Xiaohei joined the battle to the end, it took merely 5 minutes. They just died like that? Long Guoqing watched in disbelief at the bodies lying motionless at his feet. Ma Ziqian cautiously kicked the corpses with the tip of his foot. The bodies had numerous horrendous fissures, remnants of the tentacles trying to escape, but no tentacles poked out anymore. All the tentacles seemed to have turned to ash. Dead. Ma Ziqian looked at Xiang Beifei with great surprise. They couldn't see Xiaohei, only witnessing the water bubbles, unaware of who was responsible. Turning their heads, they just saw Xiang Beifei wielding a gun, exchanging fire with Shi Renmei. Bang! 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 The sound of the machine gun echoed through the woods. Xiang Beifei's method of attack even left Long Guoqing and his colleagues dumbfounded. They thought Xiang Beifei was a close-combat body cultivator, but unexpectedly, he was also a master of long-range firearms. You should know that these ghost whiskers had tightly restricted their several long-range skill-type awakeners, but Xiang Beifei, using a very peculiar local gun, managed to suppress Shi Renmei. This style of fighting was simply inexplicable to them. Seeing the surging water splashes steadily suppress Shi Renmei, everyone immediately looked at Xiang Beifei with admiring gazes. It all started from the sky raining down clusters of water bullets, pelting and knocking down the ghost visages. It must be classmate Xiang Beifei, Shi Qiao exclaimed excitedly. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They also believed that it was Xiang Beifei's doing. Apart from Xiang Beifei, no one else could have managed it. Now only Shi Renmei was left, the most troublesome ghost mustache of remnant visage, and also the most formidable one. Originally, Shi Renmei had been put in a sorry state by Xiang Beifei's water gun, but now she was using her tentacles to wrap around a large tree, relying on the dense branches and leaves to defend against Xiang Beifei. But at that moment, she suddenly felt something was amiss, turned her head, and realized all her companions were dead, which shocked her immensely. How did this happen? Shi Renmei couldn't see Xiaohei, so she had no idea how her minions had died, and the scene before her eyes was utterly shocking to her. Xiang Beifei turned his head and was also slightly startled. Xiaohei took care of all the ghost mustaches of remnant visage in 5 minutes? This little guy, was his combat power so formidable? Woof woof woof. Xiaohei barked triumphantly, even resting the gun on his shoulder, head held high and chest out. Ah? Is that how you understood what I said? Xiang Beifei looked at Xiaohei, who was carrying the small water gun, with a puzzled look. Usually, apart from systematic matters, he hardly ever expected Xiaohei to fight against others. Just now, seeing the others in a grim situation, he said, "Xiaohei, go and help them, defend this wave." Upon hearing this, Xiaohei responded, "Okay, let's give it a shot." Then his fighting spirit was aroused, his enthusiasm ignited. He unleashed his canine ferocity, exploiting his invisibility advantage, and he vigorously defeated all the ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage. He truly went for broke. The language miscommunication between man and dog resulted in the brutal demise of all the ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage, causing a human tragedy within the ranks of ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage. Experience exclusive tales on Novelbin.com. Xiang Beifei had no idea that Xiaohe would be so clever and spirited, using the creek to single-handedly annihilate all the ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage. The little guy's actions in the crucial moment were a complete surprise to him, but he quickly regained his composure. Take her down. Xiang Beifei no longer hesitated. Now there was only Shi Renmei, the tentacle monster, left. Since Xiaohe had the advantage of invisibility, dealing with her was not a problem at all. Whoosh! Xiaohe, carrying the small water gun, charged out. His tiny figure darted across the water, quickly reloading his ammunition in the blink of an eye, then leaped behind Shi Renmei. Shi Renmei couldn't see Xiaohe, but her perception was much stronger than the other ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage. She quickly noticed a disturbance in the water as if something invisible swept through. She immediately became alert, but Xiang Beifei had already leaped over wielding a big machine gun. He now had to attract Shi Renmei's attention, while the invisible Xiaohe took on the role of the main attacker. Shi Renmei was troubled by Xiang Beifei's breath soil gun, while Xiang Beifei went bang, bang, bang. She couldn't be careless and could only turn around to handle his gunfire because once careless, Xiang Beifei's breath soil gun would be enough to shoot her into a helpless state. But in doing so, she lost track of where Xiaohe had dashed to. At this moment, Shi Renmei was increasingly overwhelmed, but ultimately she was still faster than Xiang Beifei, making it very difficult for his breath soil bullets to hit. However, as she was fully concentrated, Xiaohe had already jumped right above Shi Renmei's head. Woof woof woof. Xiaohe pulled the trigger aimed at Shi Renmei's forehead. Bang! The bullet had already materialized by the time it left Xiaohe's barrel, and Shi Renmei saw this sudden bullet and immediately became aware. But it was too close, and Xiaohe's gun was unbelievably quick, leaving Shi Renmei no time to dodge. A hole appeared in Shi Renmei's forehead. Inside the hole, there was no blood flowing out, just various densely packed tentacles wriggling underneath her skin. The tentacles quickly formed another hole, trying to let Xiaohe's bullet pass through this hole from the forehead, exit out the back of the head, thus preventing any harm to herself. For Shi Renmei, having a hole in her forehead wasn't a big issue at all. However, Xiaohe had already calculated all this, and as the breath soil bullet entered Shi Renmei's brain, the bullet exploded, sending creek water splashing into Shi Renmei's head. Assissis, assissis, assissis. That clear water was like intensely toxic corrosive water, splashing onto those tentacles, instantly corroding Shi Renmei's head. Ah! Ah! Shi Renmei screamed out in pain, holding her head and wailing tragically. This blow was excruciatingly painful for her. As she clutched her head, Xiang Beifei in front had already pulled the trigger again. Bang! This time the shotgun hit Shi Renmei directly, each pellet causing creek water to splatter, traveling inside Shi Renmei's body, and her once beautiful body was riddled with holes. Xiang Beifei, without any courtesy, fired a few more shots, blasting Shi Renmei's beautiful body to bloom once again. Elegantly called double blossoms. Splash! Shi Renmei continued screaming, no longer able to hide under that intact shell. Tentacles emerged from her body trying to escape, but Xiaohe splashed a big scoop of water on it, as if dousing it with Black Dog's blood, directly turning Shi Renmei into a heap of ash. Woof woof woof. Xiaohe stood triumphantly with his hands on his hips. The Shi Renmei, with the late-stage strength of Meridian Opening, had also been horrifically slain by Xiaohe's hand. Everyone couldn't help but take an extra look at Xiang Beifei, feeling an involuntary sense of awe in their hearts. Throughout the entire process, they had only seen Xiang Beifei hold a magical gun, eliminating all the ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage. Such a method was extremely terrifying. Chung Exinen took quite a while before reacting and asked, "Resolved?" Xiang Beifei put away his gun and nodded. "Yes. The water in the stream is a bit strange. It's their nemesis." Ma Ziqian turned his head to look at the stream and hurriedly said, "Then I'll also get some to keep in reserve." This was something valuable, capable of resolving the ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage, and it might even solve the problem with those tree people outside, so he had to take some. He quickly took out a small jade bottle containing chi-controlling pills from his system interface, not caring about the small chi-controlling pills anymore, as the bottle was clearly the more important item. However, as soon as the little jade bottle touched the stream water, it suddenly melted like wax, dissolving directly. There weren't even any jade residues left. It just disappeared like that. This, Ma Ziqian was taken aback. The stream water here can devour spiritual power. It's not only the ghost mustaches of Remnant Visage's nemesis, but can also suppress us, Xiang Beifei said. The little jade bottle was produced by the system, so any system item is essentially transformed from spiritual power and can't hold this stream water. This left everyone worried because none of them had brought a real container. It was strange to say, but everybody had prepared sufficiently before entering the wilderness outside the domain, and they had brought a lot of black tech gadgets. The problem was that it seemed like no one had brought a real plastic bottle or water bladder. In the era when systems proliferated, martial artists seldom used real tools, as most of them would exchange for small items in the system's marketplace. Even those black tech gadgets were actually tinkered with by students from the black tech departments. Some of their parts were blessed with system capabilities. Then how did you manage to do it? How can you carry water? Long Guocheng was looking at the breath soil gun in Xiang Beifei's hand. Specially made black tech. The real soil and spiritual power overlap. As long as you control spiritual power precisely, keeping it separate on the side of the soil that's in contact with the stream water, without letting spiritual power directly touch the water, it's completely fine. Xiang Beifei said offhandedly. Everyone suddenly understood. There were many black tech inventions, and even an SSR would not be fully aware of all the black tech. Many unheard of black tech gadgets were commonplace and didn't think too much about it. Exactly, my dagger won't be dissolved. Ma Ziqian was stirring in the stream with his accustomed dagger. His dagger wasn't a system item but genuinely rare metal, capable of dealing with those tree people outside and not afraid of these waters. All of you go find a few trees and carve out a wooden jar. Use the trees here to carry water. I think those tree people outside are also wary of this water. They probably don't dare to come here, and the reason is largely related to the water here, Xiang Beifei said. Okay. Upon hearing this, everyone promptly went looking for trees without hesitation. But this was troublesome, as they discovered that they didn't even have a single dagger. Though the trees here wouldn't actively devour their spiritual power, they were ineffective against the trees when their spiritual power was used to attack. Among these people, only Ma Ziqian possessed a real dagger, so it became his job to make containers out of wood. Xiang Beifei stood by the stream, contemplating the water. The stream seemed very clean and without any impurities, just a very ordinary mountain spring. But for some reason, it could devour spiritual power. You just fell into the water and seemed to be fine? Xiang Beifei asked Xiaohe, who was polishing his gun with a puzzled expression. Woof! Xiaohe lifted his head pridefully, propping the gun on his shoulder to show off his thick skin. Xiang Beifei reached out to touch the stream water and found that as soon as his fingertip touched the water, he clearly felt the spiritual power pressing in the meridians of that part of his skin suppressed, pulled away toward the water. He moved his finger away, and only then could spiritual power begin to convene again. He then looked at the trees here. These trees were also a bit odd, different from those things at the foothill. Before those trees below turned into tree people, they didn't devour spiritual power. Along the way, a lot of trees had been destroyed using spiritual power. Even Xiang Beifei had set some tree leaves on fire, at which point the trees didn't absorb spiritual power. But once the trees completely changed into tree people, they began to disregard spiritual power. And the trees atop the mountain naturally disregarded spiritual power. Was it because they grew on the mountain, absorbing water from the stream all year round? Xiang Beifei looked up at the mountaintop. The stream here flowed from the bottom to the top of the mountain, so there had to be something special up there. After gathering the water, they must go take a look. Perhaps they would find a way to leave this withered forest. It took half an hour for everyone to finally fill the containers with stream water. Ma Ziqian had whittled several wooden vessels, but since they couldn't change the shape of the trees, they couldn't freely turn them into wooden spears. Xiang Beifei's breath soil could transform into a variety of clever shapes, and he used it to carve numerous thin wooden tubes with its sharp edges to facilitate carrying, arming each person with one. If worst comes to worst, just splash the water onto yourself. After all, you can't injure me and I can't injure you. If it comes down to hand-to-hand combat, we might actually have the upper hand. Ma Ziqian gestured with a dagger. Everyone's eyelids twitched, recognizing a ruthless character. If they poured the stream water over themselves, they'd surely become ordinary people unable to use spiritual power. But the tentacle monsters wouldn't be able to directly touch a drenched person either. Won't they just hit you with tree branches? Long Guoqing glanced at Ma Ziqian. Ghost mustache of remnant visage could indeed fight by coiling up tree branches, and one hit with a stick could be fatal. Oh right. Then pretend I never said that. Ma Ziqian shrugged his shoulders. What about the bodies of these people? Shi Qiao looked at the parasitized corpses with great compassion. These people were in a pitiable state, some of them disfigured beyond recognition. Take them back. Xiang Beifei signaled to Xiaohe, who spat out countless bubbles and captured all the corpses within them. After all, these corpses were once persons. When killing the ghost whiskers just now, he couldn't concern himself with the victims' appearances, but now that the ghost whiskers were slain, they would take the bodies back if possible. Discover stories at Novelbin. Calm. Xiaohe's bubbles could only contain lifeless objects, not living beings, otherwise, they wouldn't have had such trouble earlier. It then stored numerous water bubbles, filled with ammunition, before making its way up the stream towards the mountaintop. The journey became much safer after that. Although it was still dark, having Long Guoqing with them didn't cause any issues. After walking for over half an hour, they finally caught a glimpse of the mountaintop. The mountain was estimated to be several thousand meters high, and the summit was bald, with few trees. The top resembled a volcanic crater, with streams from below climbing up and converging into the crater from all directions. If one didn't look closely, they might even think that the crater was overflowing with water, creating a waterfall erupting from a spring. Everyone was curious about what lay within the crater and why the stream was flowing upwards to the mountain. What could possibly be irrigated inside? Let's try flying up, Li Zimu suggested. However, just as they stepped onto the wind and prepared to fly upwards, they encountered a powerful force of resistance pressing down on them, preventing them from ascending. Buzz! At that moment, the crater seemed to sense their approach and violently erupted with intense fluctuations. This wave was incredibly pure yet fearsomely powerful, and it swept over them with overwhelming force. Everyone gasped as the momentum felt as if it could shatter the heavens and the earth, stunning them all. An overpowering majesty weighed down upon them, instilling a feeling of powerlessness within each person, rendering them immobile. They all felt trivial in that instant, like leaves on the vast ocean, with massive waves rolling menacingly, threatening to pulverize them into nothingness at any given thought. Boom! The fluctuations from above grew stronger. Something seemed to be roaring within, the resulting vibrations tearing apart the clouds in the sky, revealing the light above to an area of 100 miles around. The mountain itself began to quiver, and even distant peaks followed suit, seemingly linked to each other, forming a vast network that enshrouded the entire withering forest. Buzz! Another powerful wave spread out, unleashing violent winds. The howling gales engulfed Xiang Beifei and the others who could not withstand the hurricane force and were swept from the summit. Be careful! Xiang Beifei attempted to stabilize himself mid-air with his sword in order to catch the others, but the terrifying winds were too strong. His companions couldn't resist and were blown away, plummeting down the mountainside. He too was lifted by the wind, with myriad things flashing before his eyes. However, at that moment he sensed something: Xiaohe's spirit-gathering book. It appeared out of nowhere, blocking the winds around him. The violent winds continued to rage, but an aura scattered from the spirit-gathering book, stably protecting Xiang Beifei and preventing him from drifting any further. He hovered in mid-air, astonished at the spirit-gathering book. The spirit-gathering book had 28 constellations, each typically requiring a generous amount of spiritual power crystals to illuminate. These crystals could be system items or desolate beast pills. Typically, he would seek out the book actively when his cultivation reached a certain level, but he hadn't expected the book to come out on its own today. Not only that, but the spirit-gathering book was flipping pages rapidly and then stopped at one. On the page, a constellation was twinkling with light. It was the Dou constellation. The Dou constellation represented the Big Dipper. Under normal circumstances, it should have required him to reach the initial phase of God refining to illuminate it. Xiang Beifei had found every time he lit up a constellation, something sealed within was revealed. For instance, the ability, learned by analogy, corresponded to a piece of tortoise shell. Abruptly stop was like an invisible whirlwind merging into his spiritual power. Sealed inside the Fang constellation was the concept, heavy as Mount Tai, light as a feather, represented by an ancient, yellowed piece of paper. The breath soil originally was just a tiny clump of dirt that he had nourished to grow with his spiritual power. But what was actually sealed inside the Dou constellation, and the abilities it held, remained unknown to him. He only knew that the now illuminated Dou constellation required 7 spiritual power crystals from the early stages of God refining to be unlocked. As for Xiang Beifei, he was still at the early stages of meridian opening, a long way off from reaching God refining. However, the 7 stars on the Dou constellation were now flickering dimly and brightly, as if something divine sealed within could sense the presence of the volcano's essence and was provoked by it, becoming very irritable. The Dou constellation emitted a powerful green aura, blasting towards the crater. The massive presence at the volcano's crater got instantly overwhelmed by the Dou constellation, weakening immediately by a third. It seemed infuriated that Xiang Beifei dared to challenge it and, in response, an even more terrifying presence hurtled towards him, clashing with the Dou constellation's green aura. The essence of the volcano's crater was a black color, fiercely colliding with the green glow of the Dou constellation in the sky. The 2 distinct auras erupted with a deafening roar, bizarre fluctuations meeting in midair, the light instantly flaring and extending miles around, illuminating the entire withered forest and the tree ants below. All the reawakened tree ants from the withered forest had gathered here, but now, they trembled, horrified by the light in the sky, too scared to even move from where they stood. Boom! The black aura from the volcano's crater grew stronger, while the aura from the Dou constellation obviously struggled under suppression, probably because its power was limited by the seal, although to Xiang Beifei, it still seemed terrifying. Nevertheless, the thing sealed within the Dou constellation was becoming increasingly agitated, unable to tolerate being challenged. It buzzed wildly, exploding again and forcefully pushing against the seal of the spirit-gathering book to suppress the volcano's essence. Boom! Boom! The 2 distinct auras battled fiercely, the formidable essences sweeping out for miles. All trees shattered from the vibrations, and even the mountain itself trembled. Xiang Beifei stood beside the spirit-gathering book, feeling as if he were caught between 2 terrifying powerhouses, but he could do nothing. This level of battle was already within the realm of God refining, far beyond his capability to intervene. Of course, he didn't need to. Even though the Dou constellation on the spirit-gathering book was tightly sealed, its residual breath still managed to suppress the opponent. It was like a slumbering dragon awakening and roaring, its voice thunderous, shaking the entire sky into agitation. But this time, the Dou constellation's aura blasted the black aura of the volcano downwards, the green light like a massive tornado, plunging into the volcano's crater, and then dragged a dark shadow out from within. Xiang Beifei could finally see what was inside the volcano. A section of black wood, thick as a wrist and 3 feet long, pitch black as though charred or like a branch that had soaked in water for too long and turned rotten. This seemingly trivial piece of black wood could erupt with such a terrifying breath that it affected the whole mountain. The Blackwood appeared extraordinary, certainly not a system item, but a truly formidable entity. The reverse stream's waters that had defeated the ghostly whiskers of Remnant Visage clearly flowed towards it, seemingly drawn up forcibly from the mountain's base to the volcano's crater at the summit. When it materialized, moisture hung in the air around it while the black glow intertwined, reflecting waves of ominous energy across the sky. However formidable the Blackwood was, the Do constellation from Xiang Beifei's spirit-gathering book still managed to pull it out and began suppressing it. Whoosh! The Blackwood refused to be subdued and suddenly sprouted branches and leaves, dark foliage extending from the wood, swiftly turning into a 10-meter-tall black tree. This large tree exuded a sinister presence, chilling and cold, vaguely entwining with the ambience of the whole withered forest. The entire forest shuddered, and numerous powerful vibrations surged skyward, resonating with the black tree from afar. The tree ants too stood terrified, frozen by the sudden, overwhelming presence. Every leaf on the tree quickly transformed into sharp, cutting through space, shattering the Do constellation's bindings, filling the sky with black leaves, each one like a blade, small as a palm. But Xiang Beifei knew clearly. Nobody present would likely withstand the attack of these leaves. Not even him. Because of the power of a single leaf, its power was equivalent to an attack from someone in the God-refining stage. Seeing the black tree break free from its restraint, it trembled once more, as the violent green aura surged again. In an instant, the mountain peak underwent a massive change. The entire sky enveloped in dazzling green light. That green radiance was exceptionally strong. As it swept through, myriad vibrant, fresh leaves floated in the air, identical to the ones the black tree had condensed. The two distinctly different types of leaves clashed with a loud bang in mid-air, the green leaves proving to be superior, crushing the black leaves into dust. The black tree, finding itself unable to do anything to the Do constellation, once again unleashed a powerful suction force, sweeping toward the ground below. The stream at the foot of the mountain, the trees, stones, these things were pulled from the high mountain by the black tree, turning into streaks of rapid flowing lights, constantly being absorbed into the black tree. The black tree was devouring everything, its own aura climbing higher as it grew incessantly stronger. At this time, even Long Guoqing and the others who were originally blown away by the big wind were swept back up by the Blackwood. About a dozen people were swiftly pulled towards the black tree, and if no measures were taken to stop it, they too would likely be devoured by the black tree. Continue your saga on Novelbin.com. Xiang Beifei, seeing them being swept up, immediately controlled his own spiritual power. The ability heavy as Mount Tai acted upon them, increasing their weight, resisting the suction force, preventing them from rising too quickly. Long Guoqing and the others didn't understand what was happening. Unable to resist in the process of being tossed about, they could only let the terrifying aura herd them around, even making them dizzy, desperately using their own spiritual power to protect themselves, with no time to pay attention to the battle happening beside Xiang Beifei. If it wasn't for the black tree being too busy dealing with the power of the Do constellation, not focusing all its strength on them, they could have been easily torn to shreds by the powerful black aura. Xiang Beifei, trying to pull those few people over to him, was unsuccessful. His meridian opening stage strength was minuscule compared to the two strange entities above. Long Guoqing and the others continued to drift upwards. The power of the Do constellation was being suppressed by the spirit-gathering book, and this wasn't even its full strength, but even so, it was subtly gaining the upper hand. Xiang Beifei felt it was necessary to give it a helping hand. The first order of business was to deal with the black tree, so he directly channeled his own spiritual power into the gathering spirit book. His spiritual power had just entered when the spirit of the Do constellation in the book perked up, as if it had received supplementation. Although Xiang Beifei's spiritual power was weak, it was out of the ordinary, and it seemed to have a great attraction for the divine entity inside the Do constellation. At this moment, the light within the Do constellation became even stronger, once again gaining the advantage. This time, it cut off the black tree's devouring, and a majestic phantom emerged from the Do constellation, carrying a trace of Xiang Beifei's spiritual power. This trace of feeble spiritual power was drawn out, quickly amplified, and struck the black tree. Simultaneously, Xiang Beifei suddenly discovered that the black tree also seemed to carry a trace of his own spiritual power, using it to counter the Dou constellation. What's going on? Xiang Beifei felt puzzled. How could his spiritual power be within the black wood? But quickly, he remembered that during the battle with the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage, he had touched the stream, which seemed to have devoured his spiritual power. And since the stream flowed towards the black wood, could it be his spiritual power that had just been devoured by the black wood? He had always had the clearest understanding of his own spiritual power and knew how to use it to exert combat strength. He stared intently at the black tree, and then, whoosh, the black tree burst into flames. The black tree itself hadn't expected a problem with the spiritual power it devoured. In a moment of panic, it lost its composure. It quickly came to its senses to deal with the flame, and soon extinguished the fire created by Xiang Beifei. But in that brief moment of distraction, the Dou constellation seized the opportunity. A green phantom rippled through the air, like a blade cutting. The spreading ripples directly split the black wood down the middle. The black wood, caught by the ripples, immediately wilted, no longer able to combat the aura of the Dou constellation. The aura on top of the Dou constellation seemed to awaken, and although it was sealed in the Gathering Spirit book, it unhesitatingly dragged the black tree towards itself. This time, no matter how the black tree struggled, it was futile. The green aura crunched down on it. The black tree once again pressed into that piece of black wood, and in the end, it was crushed by the Dou constellation into the shape of black coal dust. The black fragments were reeled back by the Dou constellation. During this process, they were ground into streams of pure dark green spiritual power that floated into the Spirit Gathering Book, landing on the 7 stars of the Dou constellation. 2 of the 7 stars of the Dou constellation lit up. Ah, this! Xiang Beifei stared at the Spirit Gathering Book in astonishment, his eyes wide open. The Dou constellation has 7 stars, meaning it requires the spiritual power crystals from 7 God refining phases to be illuminated. Xiang Beifei hadn't considered the future, but to his utmost surprise, the thing sealed within the Dou constellation had forcibly drawn something similar to itself, then melted it down and broke 2/7 of its seal all by itself. This turn of events was truly beyond his expectations. However, before Xiang Beifei could rejoice, the aura on the Dou constellation suddenly surged again, as if it refused to stay sealed within the constellation, roaring as it tried to break free from the Spirit Gathering Book. But the Spirit Gathering Book was no ordinary entity. It continued to suppress it, and at this time it set its sights on Xiang Beifei. Perhaps because it had just received Xiang Beifei's help and tasted the sweetness of his spiritual power, it started to direct its aura towards Xiang Beifei. A terrifying, devouring force came forth from the Dou constellation, beginning to fall upon Xiang Beifei. His spiritual power was being furiously devoured by the Dou constellation, using it to enhance its own strength, as if it wanted to actively illuminate the remaining 5 stars and completely break the seal. Xiang Beifei took in a sharp breath, having not expected the Dou constellation to suddenly turn against him. To obtain the abilities within the constellations, he had to first use crystals of corresponding power to illuminate the constellations, that is, to first break the seals. The reason this had to be done, as Xiaohe explained, was that some mighty entities, because they were beyond one's cultivation level, couldn't be controlled even if acquired, and might even control the user in return. Thus, these entities were sealed until one had reached a corresponding level of cultivation to then unseal them. The number of stars in a constellation indicates how many seals there are. His first acquisition of Learn by Analogy came from the Horn constellation, which has 2 stars, because the power of that tortoiseshell wasn't too strong, requiring only 2 chi-controlling phase seals to contain it. Therefore, Xiang Beifei unsealed it with 2 chi-controlling phase system items. The ability Stand Aside required 3 seals from the Meridian Opening initial phase to suppress. The Dou constellation before him, having 7 stars, meant it required 7 seals from the initial God refining phase to be held down. At this moment, The Dou constellation realized that it had just devoured the black wood, illuminating 2 stars, meaning 2 seals had been broken. It sought to continue breaking the remaining 5 seals, so it turned to devour Xiang Beifei's spiritual power, not even bothering to negotiate with him, suddenly switching roles. If things continued this way, it was clear that Xiang Beifei would become the spiritual power crystal used by the mysterious item within the Dou constellation to illuminate the stars. Previous items like the breath soil lacked self-awareness, but this divine item sealed in the Dou constellation possessed self-control abilities. It was sealed by the Spirit Gathering Book, yet still released earth-shattering power and devoured a piece of black wood equivalent to the strength of the God-refining phase. Now that it had broken 2 seals, it became even more unbridled, ready to start its rampage. If it were released now, its volatile abilities meant that Xiang Beifei, with his current strength, couldn't control it and would instead be controlled by it. Xiang Beifei immediately surged his spiritual power to retract it, not wanting to be devoured by it. However, the opposing force was too oppressive, still devouring from behind 5 seals, making it difficult for him to pull back his spiritual power. Want to devour my spiritual power? Xiang Beifei focused intently on his spiritual power being torn away, his spiritual power surging again. Whoosh! Flames immediately ignited on his body, burning from him all the way to the Spirit Gathering Book, merging into the Dou constellation. The flames made the Dou constellation's devouring unstable, and it seemed to fear the flames, actually stopping its devouring process. Xiang Beifei forcibly aborted the devouring, and the Dou constellation appeared even more enraged. It released a terrifying pressure once more, ready to make a comeback. This time, it intended to crush Xiang Beifei like the black would before devouring him. Xiang Beifei's face changed slightly, but he wasn't so easily bullied. Just now the Dou constellation had devoured so much of his spiritual power, and he could still perceive that power. If it wanted to crush him, he would just burn it directly. Just as both parties were about to engage in a fierce contest, however, at that moment. Woof! Xiaohe leapt up, baring its teeth and closing the Spirit Gathering Book with a swipe of its paw. Creak! It just closed the Spirit Gathering Book directly. The terrifying aura emanating from the Dou constellation dissipated instantly, and tranquility was restored to the world. It was as if 1 second there were fierce winds and raging waves, and the next the weather was calm and the sky clear. Explore more stories at Novelbin. Calm. This abrupt change, from the Dou constellation's explosive display of power being shut down by Xiaohe so quickly, left Xiang Beifei completely astonished. Woof, woof! Xiaohe stood with its paws on its waist, stepping on the Spirit Gathering Book. This was something it had brought, and it wouldn't allow the little rascals inside to be presumptuous. This dramatic change also left Xiang Beifei with a bewildered expression. He had been prepared to fight the Dou constellation with his flames. Even if he couldn't subdue it, he would not let it have an easy time, but he hadn't expected the Dou constellation, which could crush black wood and stir entire mountains, to be easily snuffed out by Xiaohe. It's behaving just like that? Xiang Beifei found it unbelievable, with the flames on his body not having enough time to be retracted. Originally, he thought the black wood on the mountain was lawless, leaving them at their wits' ends. But then the divine object from the Dou constellation popped up, telling the black wood who the real boss was. After swallowing the black wood, the divine object from the Dou constellation started harboring evil thoughts and was about to unleash its power against Xiang Beifei, and then Xiaohe slapped it back with a swipe of its paw, telling the Dou constellation it was nothing but crap. Is this an example of a bigger fish? Xiang Beifei looked at the smug Xiaohe, unable to help but smile wryly. Xiaohe actually had no real combat strength, it was just very clever. Just now, when fighting the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage, it relied on its own advantage of invisibility, spitting saliva and flinging droplets to wipe out the enemy. And there was no need for a high level of cultivation to deal with the Dou constellation, because it was Xiaohe who had brought the Spirit Gathering Book, and it could kill the Dou constellation with a single swipe of its paw. Woof, woof! Xiaohe declared proudly. No wonder. Xiang Beifei couldn't help but nod. The more powerful the abilities of the star spirits in the Spirit Gathering Book, the more peculiar their self-awareness, like that of the divine object in the Do constellation. If Xiang Beifei was not strong enough and rashly tried to use it, he would end up like just then, swallowed by the Do constellation. In other words, to control the divine object in the Do constellation, Xiang Beifei would need to reach the God-refining stage first. Of course, this time it could be said that it was the black wood at the summit's volcanic crater that made the first move, awakening the Do constellation. Xiang Beifei had helped the Do constellation, and being targeted by it could not be blamed on him, it was just that he was not yet able to control it. The glow in the air had already dissipated, and the fierce wind had stopped as well. When Xiang Beifei recovered his senses, he immediately thought of Long Guoqing and the others. The giant black tree in the sky had attempted to devour Long Guoqing and Li Zimu, pulling them high into the air. But now that the black tree had vanished and the pulling force gone, they all started falling again. But because Xiang Beifei himself had nearly been dealt with by the Do constellation, delaying him for about 10 seconds, the others had already fallen out of sight by now. From the nearly 5,000-meter-high mountain, those who couldn't fly would plunge to their doom. Even those in the advanced stages of qi controlling would likely be done for. Xiang Beifei turned his head around and quickly spotted several figures still falling, shrinking in size to that of ants, and fuzzy due to the great height and misty air, already scattered. He immediately turned around and rushed down the mountain to pull that group of people up. His speed in sword flight was much faster than free falling, exerting all his spiritual power and pushing it to its limits as he sped downwards. And thankfully, due to the mountain's height of several thousand meters, it took 20 to 30 seconds to fall, giving them enough reaction time. However, not many people could recover that quickly. Most had exhausted themselves while fighting the pull of the black wood, leaving them drained. Some even lost consciousness and couldn't control their bodies anymore. Xiang Beifei flew over at high speed, quickly closing the distance, and when he was about 50 meters away from them, he abruptly activated the Abruptly Stop ability, trying to reach them. Unfortunately, they were still too far, and Xiang Beifei managed only to grab Li Zimu and Di Sheng. Save others! They were both still dazed when Xiang Beifei shouted, waking them up in time. Li Zimu also realized that something was wrong as the others continued to fall. They immediately used their own abilities to catch the others. As Di Sheng was falling, he forcefully flung a stream of spiritual power ahead, creating a large mass of water in midair with the spiritual power. They fell into the water, which caused a huge impact, and the group quickly fell through it again. Di Sheng created several layers of water in succession, nearly depleting his own spiritual power, but by that point, the water's resistance had significantly slowed their descent. At that moment, Li Zimu cast the Yellow River's waters, washing everyone into the river. The rushing water carried them away, using it to lessen the impact of their fall. He directed the water's flow toward the peak. But due to the turbulent flow, Li Zimu couldn't look out for everyone. When they were about 30 meters from the ground, Shi Qiao, caught off guard, got thrown out of the Yellow River and headed for the ground. At the foot of the mountain, many tree people were still clustered together, looking like they were gathering as they looked up at them. Xiang Beifei spotted Shi Qiao at a glance and gave chase immediately, almost pushing his flying sword to spark with his speed. But still, he couldn't catch up. Just as Shi Qiao was about to hit the ground, he finally closed the gap, immediately releasing a burst of spiritual power. The essence of Abruptly Stop acted on Shi Qiao in an instant. Thanks to Li Zimu's floodwaters, which had already reduced much of the impact, the sudden halt wasn't too harmful for Shi Qiao, who had already lost consciousness by then. Not hitting the ground was already a stroke of good fortune. Just as Xiang Beifei was about to grab Shi Qiao, who remained suspended in air, a tree person suddenly extended a branch and wrapped it around the hovering Shi Qiao. Let her go! Xiang Beifei landed, shouting fiercely, ready to start a fight with his water gun drawn. The tree people, however, seemed to notice something. They looked at the mountain top, then at Xiang Beifei with terror, seemingly afraid of him. The tree person that had caught Shi Qiao instinctively put her down on the ground and swiftly retreated, not harming Shi Qiao. Xiang Beifei hurried over, checked on Shi Qiao, and found that she was just unconscious, most likely without serious injuries. which allowed him to breathe a sigh of relief. Then he stood up, vigilant against the tree people. The tree people here were very odd, having chased them all over the place earlier. Xiang Beifei raised his breath soil gun and said, "If you want to fight, go ahead." However, before he could finish his sentence, the tree people suddenly began waving their arms on the spot, gesturing at Xiang Beifei and emitting strange sounds. "You! Forgiveness!" Each tree person had a perplexed expression, muttering these two words with conviction, their eyes earnestly fixed on Xiang Beifei. They did not charge at Xiang Beifei as they had before. This scene also made Xiang Beifei frown. "Woof!" Xiaohe scratched his head, looking at Xiang Beifei with confusion, and waved his small water gun. He was ready to throw the bubbles over, but the sudden change in the tree people caught Xiaohe by surprise. The bullets were loaded, but were they not going to shoot after all? "I wonder if it's the water guns in our hands that scared them off." Xiang Beifei examined his breath soil gun. The tree people's reluctance to approach the mountain they had just been near was very likely due to the Erie Creek water on it. They had brought along many waters from the creek earlier, thinking it might also restrain the tree people. Was it the scent of the creek water that shook them? Or was it the piece of black wood at the top of the mountain? Or could it be something from the Dou constellation? Xiang Beifei stared at the calling tree people. They seemed to have lost their hostility towards them. On the contrary, their eyes were filled with respect and urgency. They murmured the words "you" and "meng." But Xiang Beifei had no idea what the tree people were trying to express. Although he had the ability learn by analogy and was very fast at learning languages, he had to actually learn them first. For example, Xiaohe's entire language consisted solely of the sound "woof." When Xiang Beifei first learned Xiaohe's language, knowing what Xiaohe meant allowed Xiang Beifei to simply ask how Xiaohe would woof, to compliment his handsomeness or talent. Even though Xiaohe woofed reluctantly, through back-and-forth translation with more woofed syllables, Xiang Beifei learned it. Should he try getting the tree people to compliment him as well? The only problem was whether the tree people understood his language, because communication required that both parties understood the meaning and then translated accordingly. Xiang Beifei cleared his throat and said solemnly, "I don't know what you are saying, and I don't know if you can understand my language, but if you can, please knock 6. Woof!" Xiaohe stretched out his 2 front paws and showed 6 claws. The tree people stopped their chanting and looked at each other in puzzlement. "Say 666 in your language." Xiang Beifei held out his thumb and pinky, shaking them to demonstrate to the group of tree people. The tree people seemed not to quite understand. A few tried to imitate Xiang Beifei's gesture, showing thumbs and pinkies, but they seemed to be just copying him while pondering in their eyes. "This is 6. Xiang Beifei said again. "You meng, you meng, you meng." The tree person at the front, who had pine needles on its body, cautiously voiced out, "Ah? Are you saying to express 6, you need to make 6 syllables?" Xiang Beifei asked in surprise. "That would be something if they had to say 100 million. How do you say, 'You are handsome' in your language?" Xiang Beifei asked earnestly. A tree person with poplar leaves spoke in a very deep voice. "You! Are you translating? Or are you asking?" Xiang Beifei noticed something off in the tree person's tone. "You meng, you meng." Another tree person with banana leaves spoke hurriedly, then pointed to the ground. But Xiang Beifei still did not understand them. The tree people looked anxious, but if he could not learn their language, communication would be difficult. Xiang Beifei was quick at learning languages, but it seemed the tree people were not very cooperative. And then, buzz! A vibration came from the ground below, swirling around each of the tree people. Their bodies jerked sharply as if they showed a look of despair, frozen in place. Then they began to slowly transform, sprouting various branches and leaves, rooting on the spot and turning back into trees. Continue your journey on Novelbin. Calm. Then each tree began to wither, as if swept by an autumn breeze, the mountain woods turning golden. The whole process took less than 10 seconds. "They've all turned back into trees?" Xiang Beifei and Xiaohe, a man and a dog with water guns in hand, looked at each other. The tree people no longer bore any malice, and although he had thought of communicating with them, the opportunity vanished abruptly, robbing Xiang Beifei of the chance to learn the language of the trees. Woof? Xiaohe asked. I don't know. Xiang Beifei shook his head. He likewise had no clue how to awaken the tree people. He approached a pine tree which turned green again, but that was it. There was no difference from how everything appeared when they first arrived. Just now, it was probably the sight of Xiang Beifei defeating the black wood that caused the tree people to hold him in awe. However, he couldn't be certain why they turned back into tree people later. It seemed some mysterious force underground was constraining them. What sparked Xiang Beifei's curiosity was the black wood in the volcano earlier. The black wood appeared very formidable, making the tree people so wary. He had thought it must surely be a unique and powerful divine object, but it just perished outright. Xiang Beifei hadn't even had the chance to figure out its origin. After trying for a moment, he found he still couldn't turn the trees back into people. Forget it. Let's not worry about this for now. Xiang Beifei couldn't make sense of it, so he decided not to think about it. If there was a mysterious power here that could restrict the tree people, then the place was still dangerous. He hurriedly helped Xiqiao up and channeled his spiritual power into her, which brought her back to a groggy state of consciousness. Are you okay? Xiang Beifei asked. I'm all right. It felt like someone grabbed me just now. Xiqiao touched her forehead, having been confused from the very start by the black wood, only to feel herself falling before being caught. She patted her forehead with her hand to clear her mind a bit. Did classmate Xiang Beifei save me? Nearly didn't catch you. Glad you're fine. What about the others? Xiqiao asked further. Xiang Beifei stood up, looked around, and began searching for the others, saying, I don't know. I saw you falling and went to find you first. The others might have been swept up to the mountain by Li Zimu, and it was unclear what their condition was now. Classmate Xiang Beifei looked for me first? Xiqiao brightened, sneaking a glance at Xiang Beifei, her heart brimming with joy. Out of all the people, he chose to look for me first. Xiqiao sat on the ground, her mind wandering who knows where, a blush suddenly spreading across her face as she sat there, giggling to herself, as if the bruises on her body didn't matter anymore. But Xiang Beifei wasn't paying attention to her. With the tree people now silent, he needed to regroup the team first. Hurry, we need to find the others. Okay. When Xiqiao came to her senses, she found that Xiang Beifei had already walked far ahead and hurried to catch up. The clouds in the sky had been scattered, and daylight had broken. The ghost mustache of remnant visage had vanished, and the tree people stood at attention. Xiang Beifei called out twice, and there were responses from the mountain. Soon they found everyone. Fortunately, the others weren't seriously harmed. A person from Yongzhou University had been swept halfway up the mountain and left hanging from a tree off a cliff, having been knocked unconscious, but otherwise lucky. Long Guoqing had been swept into the woods on the mountain and seemed to have had a bad fall, with a broken leg. Ma Ziqian, however, was unharmed. His ability to control speed also meant he had faster reflexes than anyone else, and he possessed a power called relative speed that allowed him free control over velocity. By transferring his own speed to something else, making that object move faster, he could reduce his forced movement to a crawl. Ma Ziqian had only managed to grab Tang He and Di Sheng, transferring the speed to the surging water, then stood motionless in the water like the calming sea divine needle. Relatively speaking, the three of them were almost uninjured. With the help of Chang Xinan, Li Zimu and Hu Hongkai also managed to stabilize themselves. Xiqiao had a strong self-recovery ability and quickly got better. She then reset Long Guoqing's broken leg and healed the head wound of a student from Yongzhou University who had a concussion and seemed to be unconscious for a long time. He should wake after quite a while, but it shouldn't be anything serious, said Xiqiao. Thank you. Chang Xinan breathed a sigh of relief. It was a relief that his team was okay. As long as they could save a life once out, there would be awakeners in the alliance with various powerful healing systems. He asked Hu Hongkai to summon a hawk to carry the unfortunate fellow. Among them, this guy was the only one to have suffered such a fate. the unluckiest of the lot. The tree people have turned back into trees. Is it because it's daylight now? Long Guoqing, tapping his reattached leg, asked with confusion. It seems so, replied Ma Ziqian with a nod. They hadn't seen Xiang Beifei dealing with the tree people and were unclear about what had actually happened. Let's go, we need to quickly find a way out, Xiang Beifei said. Then which way should we go? Asked Chang Exinen. Xiang Beifei pondered for a moment. Perhaps due to his recent experiences, the withered forest no longer seemed as eerie to him. The trees here were clearly dead, yet each one seemed alive, standing there as if eagerly watching him, each tree forming a fleeting and uncertain connection with Xiang Beifei. As he stared at these trees in contemplation, suddenly, a very faint voice came into his mind. The voice was indistinct in origin, but seemed to come from deep within the forest, as if conjuring something. This voice was strange. It was difficult to tell which tree person was speaking. It might have been an illusion, but the voice sounded vaguely familiar. Xiang Beifei turned towards the direction of the voice. What is it? Li Zimu asked. Around here. Did you hear anything? Xiang Beifei asked. Li Zimu and the others looked at each other, wondering if the ghostly visage and the tree people were making a comeback, and promptly became vigilant. What sound? Xiang Beifei listened carefully to that calling, but the others seemed to hear nothing. No sound, still just the ghostly sight from before, said Long Guoqing. Since entering the withered forest, they hadn't even seen a small insect, let alone the chirping of cicadas or birds. It had been utterly silent except for the rustling of tree leaves. Xiang Beifei took a few steps towards the sound, and soon he began to make it out. Beifei! Beifei! Xiang Beifei frowned slightly in surprise. What's going on? Beifei? Xiang Beifei felt puzzled, for the voice grew more familiar the more he listened, but he just couldn't remember where he had heard it. It wasn't his own voice, but he was certain he had heard it somewhere before. Whose voice was it? At that moment, Xiang Beifei suddenly found that all the withered trees in the forest seemed to be quietly changing. Whenever Xiang Beifei set his gaze upon a tree, its leaves would silently turn. It was as if they were deliberately guiding him. Let's try walking north, Xiang Beifei suddenly said. North? Where is north here? Long Guoqing looked up at the sky. Although it was already light, the fog was dense, and the sun was nowhere to be seen. Without a reference point, how could they identify the north? Look at the growth of the trees. Xiang Beifei walked over to a withered ginkgo tree that soon regained its green vigor, its lush branches gently swaying by his side. The side where the leaves grow more vigorously should, under normal circumstances, be facing south because the sunlight there is more abundant, making the foliage denser. Xiang Beifei patted the trunk, as though patting the shoulder of an old buddy. The tree trembled slightly, startling everyone. They thought the tree was about to come alive again, as by now they had developed a deep fear of these trees. But the tree remained still. Li Zimu asked, "But this place is the wilds beyond the realm. Does the theory of south and north apply to the wilted forest? Whether it applies or not, this is the only way we can figure out our direction. At least the leaves of the trees here are generally distributed like this. Even if the light here isn't from the north, it's definitely all oriented in one direction," Xiang Beifei said. After carefully analyzing the leaves, everyone found that the closest trees did indeed grow in this way. Suddenly, everything fell into place. None of them had thought of this method before. Xiang Beifei took the lead and flew north on his sword, with everyone following close behind without further question. The wilted forest stretched as far as the eye could see, and from time to time, they could see broad flashes of lightning in the distance. But at this moment, no one had the inclination to search for the landmine dragon in that direction. They just wanted to get out of the wilted forest as soon as possible. Xiang Beifei's direction of flight was neither towards the Thunder Sea nor in the direction they had initially thought the Thunder Sea to be. Instead, he flew across the wilted forest. According to his judgment, the endless Thunder Sea was on the west side, and the direction from which they had entered was the east, so flying along the north was like traversing the wilted forest. By their original understanding, this direction was obviously wrong. Strangely enough, initially, like a headless fly, they were unable to find their way out of the forest. However, after flying north for 5 minutes, they suddenly saw the boundary of the wilted forest. They hadn't been flying very fast this time. With their speed, they had traveled no more than 5 kilometers. They couldn't understand why they couldn't see the forest boundary from the air, which was only 5 kilometers away. After all, the view from the sky is very open, especially since they had just fallen onto a mountain and had taken advantage of the dawn to look out from a high altitude, yet they still hadn't seen the edge of the wilted forest. But nobody dwelt on it too much. Having escaped the wilted forest, everyone let out a sigh of relief. Getting away was what mattered most. There was no need to delve into those matters. The edge of the wilted forest rippled, as if they had crossed through some strange place, and when they came out, it no longer seemed to be the same plain they had entered from, but another eerie place, a rocky slope. And in his heart, Xiang Beifei suddenly perceived another strange aura. He turned to look and spotted several people appearing on a few trees near the boundary of the wilted forest not far away. These people were dressed in dirty clothes, some of which were stained with blood. The leader was a man whose throat had been slit and who was still bleeding. "It's the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage again," Chang Xianen said in a deep voice. "Retreat." Xiang Beifei stared at the man with the broken throat. The man's aura was extremely peculiar. In Xiang Beifei's perception, this fellow seemed even stronger than Shi Renmei. This time, knowing how to deal with these ghostly entities, everyone was prepared. Each of them held a rough wooden bottle, most people's water containers having been lost, but Xiang Beifei's was still there. He and Xiaohei stood in front, a man and his dog, each holding a soil gun as if they were handling a Gatling, fearlessly standing their ground. "Continue your adventure at Novelbin." Calm. But the broken throat did not charge at them directly. Instead, he stared at Xiang Beifei with his pale eyes. Suddenly, the sharp-eyed Long Guoqing uttered a low cry and said, "The people by their side, aren't they?" Behind the broken throat stood several people, all with drooping heads, their fate unknown, wrapped by tentacles. These were participants from other schools, but Long Guoqing could not recall their names, as he hadn't bothered to remember so many. Xiang Beifei, however, recognized them. It seemed as if these people were not dead, for he could still see their system interfaces. Shockingly, all of them SR-ranked students, 2 of whom were from Yenzhou University. It was indeed Feng Mao and Lu Ling, who Zhu Xinjue had handed over to the ghostly visage. "They've been captured, we need to call for help." Chang Xianen immediately pressed the SOS talisman. They were already out of the wilted forest, so the SOS talisman should have been working. But the SOS talisman still didn't react. Xiang Beifei and the others tried the forfeit talisman and SOS talisman too, and these were still useless. However, the broken throat didn't come over either. He just looked up at the sky and abruptly turned around and left. As the broken throat turned, countless tentacles burst forth, and in an instant, he merged into the wilted forest with the group of people. "What should we do? Should we go after it?" Chang Xianen asked Xiang Beifei anxiously. But just as he finished speaking, a ripple rose from the ground at the edge of the withered forest behind them, and then the entire withered forest, as if destroyed by a phantom, suddenly turned to flying ash and completely disappeared. Along with it, the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage also vanished. Xiang Beifei's heart skipped a beat, as the connection he had with that withered forest suddenly broke off. Disappeared. Everyone was stunned, not understanding why an entire good forest had vanished. Where the withered forest stood, there was now a stone forest instead. Tall stones intertwined with each other, and whether it was due to years of weathering or some other reason, some towering spires rose hundreds of meters high, like skinny little mountains. When we were in the withered forest just now, how did we not come across these stones? As they looked around the stone forest, everyone soon saw about a dozen people suddenly appear atop the tallest stone column. The leaders were 2 exceptionally strong individuals, whom Xiang Beifei and the others quickly recognized. One was a judge sent by the League, named Sun Hushuan, and the other was Yang Chengze from Yenzhou University, assisting the judge. It's people from the league. Upon seeing the two, Chung Xianen finally felt a weight lift from his heart. Although they weren't professors from their own university, they were judges after all, and just by seeing them, they were essentially safe. The two judges also spotted them and immediately led their people over. Behind them followed students from other universities, including those from Jizhou and Yangzhou universities. Xiang Beifei also saw Xia Wenxi from Jingzhou University. They had encountered his team in the withered forest before, and Xiang Beifei had once warned them. Xia Wenxi now was pale, bearing scars on his body, looking like he had suffered great injuries. It seemed he had encountered either the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage or Tree People and had gone through a fierce battle. Nevertheless, as an SSR of Meridian Opening Phase, he surely had ways to save his life and must have escaped death this time. But his team seemed to be missing people. Are you all okay? Seeing Xiang Beifei and his group's tense faces loosening somewhat, the league judge Sun Hushuan felt somewhat relieved. After all, finding another dozen or so people was indeed fortunate. We're fine, just one person fainted, Chung Xianen said. Let me have a look. Sun Hushuan immediately went over, checked the conditions of the person who had fainted in Chung Xianen's team, assessed the injuries, then stood up and said, he should be all right. Did you also encounter those things? A group of tree people and a group of dead men. Yes. Xiang Beifei nodded. Ghost mustache of Remnant Visage. Ghost mustache of Remnant Visage? Are you certain it was that? Only then did Sun Hushuan take notice of Xiang Beifei. He was very impressed with him and took his words seriously. Xiang Beifei wasn't surprised Sun Hushuan knew about the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage. Even though this type of desolate beast had only been named by Xiang Beifei 2 or 3 months ago, since even Chung Xianen knew about them, the judge surely did as well. Elder, did you not encounter these desolate beasts earlier? Xiang Beifei didn't know what Sun Hushuan's role in the league was, and since it seemed like he was a temporary judge, given that he looked about 50 years old, Xiang Beifei addressed him as Elder directly. I didn't see them with my own eyes. I had just entered the withered forest not long ago, probably less than 20 minutes, and just found them. They told me they were being chased by a group that looked like they had been dead for a long time. I was leading them to find a way, when suddenly the withered forest disappeared, Sun Hushuan said, gesturing towards the shaken students behind him. Xiang Beifei understood why Broken Throat had not attacked them but instead retreated immediately. It turned out it was because Sun Hushuan and the other person had come. Sun Hushuan was an SSR. Moreover, he was an SSR whose cultivation level couldn't be seen, which meant it must be at least above the God refining stage. Although Yang Chengze was only an SR, his cultivation was also in the mid-stage of God refining. Presumably, Ghost Mustache of Remnant Visage wouldn't dare to confront such an expert directly, because once a fight broke out here, Broken Throat would be at a complete disadvantage. Did you encounter those things? Have any of you been injured? Sun Hushuan asked sternly. We're fine. Let me check, we can't be careless. We can't rule out the possibility that desolate beasts left some kind of trick on you. Sun Hushuan seemed to be a very responsible referee. Without further ado, he took out a ball, released his spiritual power, and thoroughly checked everyone from head to toe. After about 5 seconds, once satisfied that there were no issues, he finally relaxed. No serious harm, but we can't be negligent. We've already notified others to come here. Everyone will arrive soon, and we'll discuss the specifics then, Sun Hushuan cautioned seriously. All right. Xiang Beifei nodded slightly, and after a moment, he asked again. Why did the forfeit talisman become ineffective? Even after leaving the withered woods, it couldn't be used. Sun Hushuan spoke with a somewhat heavy tone. We were all careless about this matter. The location you were in was out of range. Since we lost contact with you, everyone has been mobilized. We'll talk about the specifics later. Did you see anyone else? Yes. Just now we saw a man with his throat cut staring at us in the woods. They probably sensed your presence and immediately left. He also had 3 students hostage. Xiang Beifei glanced again at Yang Chengze from Yenzhou University. Among the 3 kidnapped students, 2 were from their school, handed over by Zhu Pengfei himself. Which direction did they go? Sun Hushuan asked immediately. They disappeared with the withered woods, and now we don't know the situation. Chang Xinan pointed in another direction. Sun Hushuan spoke in a deep voice. Then I'll go look for them. Don't you wander off now. I've sent a signal and others will soon arrive. Stay here with Professor Yang for now and protect yourselves. We absolutely cannot have any more incidents. As an SSR of the Alliance, Sun Hushuan took great care of the younger generation. Even though he himself was an SSR, he still placed great importance on these students. After all, the students here could be considered the future pillars of Zhuzhou, and the loss of even one would cause him lasting regret. Xiang Beifei, you have the highest strength here. Assist Professor Yang in looking after everyone. You must also keep yourself safe, understand? Sun Hushuan said sternly to Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei was already recognized as the strongest among the new generation, and Sun Hushuan had great anticipation for such a talent. Even though Xiang Beifei's system grade was only N level, he did not take it lightly. Understood. Xiang Beifei nodded slightly. Sun Hushuan repeated his instructions to the SR, Yang Chengze, to take care of the other students, then stepped forward, the space rippled, and he disappeared on the spot. Xiang Beifei looked thoughtfully in the direction where Sun Hushuan had vanished. His original impression of the Zhuzhou Alliance hadn't been very good because up to now, the methods the Alliance used to select talent had many flaws, including the presence of many people unworthy of their position. However, Sun Hushuan seemed different from ordinary SSR awakeners. He was very responsible in both his words and actions. The other students found places to rest, lacking the mood to chat idly. After encountering such misfortune, all they wanted now was to get home. Xiang Beifei's team found a large rock to sit and rest for a while. Yang Chengze from Yenzhou University had been silent the whole time, letting the SSR Sun Hushuan handle things. Only after Sun Hushuan had left did he coldly turn to Xiang Beifei. Where is Zhu Pengfei? Yang Chengze stared at Xiang Beifei. Experience tales at Novelbin. Calm. Xiang Beifei's brows slightly furrowed. Chang Xinan and the others showed displeasure when Zhu Pengfei was mentioned. This was because earlier in the woods, it was Zhu Pengfei who lured the ghostly visage over, and according to Zhu Pengfei's words, he seemed to have handed over students from other schools to the ghostly visage. Even though they had eradicated the ghost mustache of remnant visage thanks to Xiang Beifei, they still harbored resentment towards the name Zhu Pengfei. Yang Chengze, with an intense look, continued to speak to Xiang Beifei. Just now on that mountain, Zhu Pengfei was with several of you. Why is he gone? You're still here. What did you do to Zhu Pengfei? Professor Yang, were you also on that mountain just now? Why didn't you show up when we were in trouble? Chang Xinan looked at Yang Chengze with great caution. Due to the incident with Zhu Pengfei from Yenzhou University, he had developed a significant guard against anyone from Yenzhou University. Sun Hushuan had found the withered forest barely 20 minutes ago. He must have entered after the riot at the summit, but if Yang Chengze was drawn there by the explosion, he obviously would have been there for more than 10 minutes. Yang Chengze looked impassively at Chang Xinan, then turned to Xiang Beifei and said, "We had just entered the withered forest shortly before, and later when we noticed the explosion on the mountain, we hurried over. Then we saw someone attack Zhu Pengfei from behind. That person was you." Chang Xinan, watching the vehemently indignant Yang Chengze, glanced at his own system interface. Current behavior determination of Yang Chengze. Negative. He possessed the vast righteous qi system, allowing him to rapidly judge whether a person's actions were just. Yang Chengze's current attitude was aggressive, clearly coming to exact blame. Chang Xinan asked, "How do you know we encountered Zhu Pengfei?" Being someone who couldn't ignore injustices, Chang Xinan naturally stood by Xiang Beifei's side. Yang Chengze said, "Chen Baiwen saw it. He has that ability." It was only then that everyone noticed Chen Baiwen among the students behind Yang Chengze. Chen Baiwen was an SSR known to all. Despite his loss to Xiang Beifei at the fighting platform that day, his abilities left a deep impression on everyone, and basically every school's teacher could analyze what his system abilities were all about. Xiang Beifei looked at the awkward Chen Baiwen and slightly furrowed his eyebrows. Chen Baiwen's gaze shifted evasively, visibly lacking confidence, not daring to look directly at Xiang Beifei, and only said, "Professor, I didn't quite see everything, because there were a lot of disruptions in the shadows. I strictly didn't see him at all, and I couldn't see what happened afterwards." Zhu Xinjue entered his own world and disappeared, with a powerful UR-level blockade. Chen Baiwen could not possibly know how Zhu Xinjue died. In fact, Chen Baiwen couldn't see Xiang Beifei, either because Xiang Beifei had hidden his tracks, but he could see the others. The shadows of other people on the mountain still existed. Yang Chengze wasn't a fool. With just a little deducing, he could tell who had just made a move against Zhu Pengfei. However, Yang Chengze continued to press Xiang Beifei relentlessly. "Zhu Pengfei disappeared after he encountered you. You are all here, but he's not. You must give me an explanation today." He was desperately eager to find out the whereabouts of Zhu Pengfei, even more worried about Zhu Pengfei than the others. Xiang Beifei thoughtfully scrutinized Yang Chengze's system interface. Host: Yang Chengze, find exclusive stories on novelbin.com. SR rank, subliminal influence system. Realm, middle stage of God refining. Yang Chengze's system belonged to a kind of mental system, possessing the ability to make others obey him. His way of growing stronger was unique, as long as his behaviors and remarks were acknowledged or carried out by others, influencing them, it would let him grow stronger. Su Hong, following your instruction, killed the claw-tailed monkey using the iron-flying hawk's venom, influence power plus 18. Chen Baiwen followed your advice, went on stage to fight Xiang Beifei, influence power plus 29. Yang Chengze's system could be used to change a person, instilling his own behaviors and remarks into others. Thus, in his lectures, as long as he presented a theory to the students, whether it was a commonly accepted one or his own, once the students believed it, it was as if he had influenced them, rapidly enhancing his system's value. And precisely because he was an SR-rank professor, his words were nearly authoritative in the eyes of the students, who would easily act according to his words, essentially influencing the judgment of the students. Xiang Beifei continued to check the logs of the opponent's system. 13 students who doubted Zhu Pengfei's identity were influenced by you. Realizing that Zhu Pengfei is unrelated to Zhu Xinjue, influence power plus 568. So that's how it was. When Xiang Beifei saw this log entry, he suddenly understood why Yang Chengze was so concerned about Zhu Pengfei. Indeed, Zhu Xinjue came back to life under a new identity, and it was impossible not to be suspected. The SR students of the Jiuzhou Alliance could be counted each year, and a prestigious school would only recruit a dozen SRs a year, so the sudden emergence of a big-time SR student like Zhu Pengfei was bound to draw attention. When Zhu Xinjue, under the identity of Zhu Pengfei, reapplied for school, even with a complete makeover, it was just a change of identity. Zhu Xinjue's character and behavior, as well as his system abilities, couldn't be changed. When Zhu Xinjue displayed his abilities among the freshmen, there would certainly be sophomores at Yenzhou University who were familiar with Zhu Xinjue and would question his identity. And that's when Yang Chengze's abilities were needed to deal with these questioning students. Others might not know Zhu Pengfei's identity, but Yang Chengze knew it best. Xiang Beifei, having seen Yang Chengze's system interface, roughly understood why Yang Chengze was looking for trouble with him. Xiang Beifei asked, "Since you can see what others have done, then why didn't you see the conversation between the disguised desolate beasts and Zhu Pengfei? For instance, were you from Yenzhou University together with Zhu Pengfei from the beginning? Why is it only him left? Where are the others?" Yang Chengze must have used Chen Baiwen's ability to find students from other universities, but normally, he should have clearly seen the transactions between Zhu Xinjue and Shi Renmei, even including the fact that 2 other SRs from Yenzhou University were captured by Zhu Pengfei. However, Yang Chengze was clearly avoiding the more important issues. Chen Baiwen's gaze darted around, avoiding a direct response to this question. However, Yang Chengze, bristling with anger, shouted at Xiang Beifei, "We only saw you clashing with him. He took you into the battle space, and then only you came out alone. Did you kill him?" Chang Xanin immediately spoke up, "Professor, This was all stirred up by Zhu Pengfei. He colluded with the ghost whiskers of Remnant Visage, almost killing all of us. I didn't see him do anything, but I saw that after Xiang Beifei and Zhu Pengfei disappeared, only Xiang Beifei was left. You need to explain this to me. Yang Cheng's tone was very aggressive, showing no interest in listening to explanations. After the incident with Zhu Xinjue, that UR-level big shot had entrusted him with helping Zhu Xinjue change his identity. He knew this secret very well, but due to the restrictions at the UR level, even though he knew the secret, he couldn't reveal it. The UR level Zhu Yiji was an existence SR level Yang Chengze didn't dare provoke. This was supposed to be just a regular freshman competition, which, as per tradition, wouldn't have led to any major issues. But unexpectedly this year, an accident occurred, and after finally discovering the withered forest, Zhu Pengfei was gone. He was extremely troubled and needed to clear things up. If the UR level blame came down, it would mean negligence on his part, and he had to find a way out for himself. Tang He, who had been following the Qingzhou University team with Xiang Beifei, mustered up his courage and said, Zhu Pengfei deserved to die. He killed Ho Qingguo from our Qingzhou University. Chen Baiwan, why don't you mention that? Yang Chengze turned his head. His eyes flickered with a nearly invisible gleam. Is that so? I don't think so. Yang Chengze stared at Tang He. I rather think you are mistaken. You have spent 10 points of influence to exert subtle influence on Tang He. Tang He was stunned, a trace of confusion appearing in his eyes, and he muttered, But, I don't know. Maybe? Your words have influenced Tang He. He begins to tentatively agree with your perspective, influence +9. Yang Chengze's influence could be split into compulsory and non-compulsory types. Normal teaching activities are non-compulsory and don't require spending system points. Students are free to decide whether to follow his guidance. If they do, it makes them stronger. However, if he has to force someone to obey, it initially costs some influence points, and it's another matter whether he will break even, such as with Tang He now being influenced by 10 points but only returning 9, clearly at a loss. Of course, the more system points he spends, the more influential his words are, but since Tang He is not his main target, he need not waste too much on him. Although Tang He is also an SR-level awakener, his power is only at a late Qi controlling stage, far from being able to contend with Yang Chengze's mid-god refining stage power. Yang Chengze continued to stare at Xiang Beifei. To accuse Zhu Xinjue, it was unfavorable for him, so he needed to obscure the facts by using the ability of subtle influence to sway Tang He's perceptions and remove the negative impacts on his side. However, concerning Zhu Xinjue's disappearance, he was convinced it involved Xiang Beifei. Hence, there was absolutely no need to rely on his system to forcibly influence Xiang Beifei's perception. Find more to read at novelbin.com. He only needed to use his own formidable presence to force Xiang Beifei to honestly recount the matter, thus saving some system points. One thing at a time. If you killed Zhu Pengfei, if you don't explain yourself today, I will not spare you. Yang Chengze's powerful presence surged towards Xiang Beifei and his group. As long as Xiang Beifei confessed to killing Zhu Pengfei, he was determined to take Xiang Beifei down. Being of the god-refining stage, Yang Chengze's presence was extremely terrifying, visibly altering the expressions of everyone present. Professor Yang, what are you doing? Chang Xianen exclaimed. I am merely seeking the truth. Yang Chengze completely ignored Chang Xianen, continuing to fix his gaze on Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei faced the storm-like aura with a grave expression. The oppression from the god-refining stage was no joke. Yang Chengze did not intend to use his system abilities against him, relying purely on the suppression of his cultivation. Xiaohe was unable to fully defend against it. However, Xiang Beifei still looked directly at Yang Chengze without flinching, his spiritual power rapidly circulating, with the force of a counterstrike sweeping out, dividing the oppressive aura bearing down on him. Professor Guo had once taught him how to use counterstrike to ward off others' oppression. Since aura belonged to a method of exerting spiritual power, counterstrike was precisely meant to defend against others' power. Professor Guo had specially instructed him how to handle the aura from a god-refining stage opponent. Xiang Beifei was extremely skilled in controlling counterstrike, He might not be able to handle black wood that could devour spiritual power, but he could certainly deal with Yang Chengze. Seeing that Xiang Beifei remained unflustered and even dispersed his own aura, Yang Chengze took another step forward, his overwhelming presence fiercely enveloping Xiang Beifei. This time, Xiang Beifei couldn't help but take a half step back. But just then, a chilling shout rang out. "Get out!" A shadow, ghostly and swift, swept by and appeared in front of Xiang Beifei, its aura as sinister as a demon from hell, emitting a terrifyingly cold presence, even more formidable than Yang Chengze, directly forcing Yang Chengze to retreat. Yang Chengze's face drastically changed, and he staggeringly stepped back 3 steps, looking up in shock and anger at the person before him, not expecting anyone to appear there. The oppressive aura that had weighed on Xiang Beifei also vanished, and he slightly surprisedly lifted his head to look at the person before him. For a moment he thought he had seen wrong. Standing before Xiang Beifei was none other than the least popular teacher at Liangzhou University, Yu Qixin. If it had been Elder Luo or Yi Changfeng who came, Xiang Beifei certainly wouldn't have been surprised. But the problem was, it was actually Yu Qixin. At this moment, Yu Qixin still seemed like a block of black ice, exuding a coldness that dampened any warmth. If Yang Chengze's aura was like a raging flood, then Yu Qixin was more like a chilling gloom, freezing Yang Chengze's aura outright. "Yu Qixin, what are you doing?" Yang Chengze shouted. "How dare you touch my student?" Yu Qixin stared coldly at Yang Chengze, his sinister eyes like a chilling black snake, directly making Yang Chengze feel unnerved. Yang Chengze, feeling his mouth dry and tongue parched, knew Yu Qixin well and understood his formidable nature. Grinding his teeth, he said, "I was only..." Whoosh! A cold, icy flash directly struck at Yang Chengze. Yang Chengze's face drastically changed, and he hastily tried to defend himself. He unleashed a wave of spiritual power, neutralizing the icy flash, but was still forced back several steps. He never expected Yu Qixin to be so domineering. "Yu Qixin, don't go too far," Yang Chengze fiercely shouted, his face a mix of rage and fear. "Isn't it excessive to attack my student?" Yu Qixin looked sinisterly at Yang Chengze, his tone chilling. He took another step forward. Thud, thud, thud. Yang Chengze, intimidated by Yu Qixin's chilling demeanor, couldn't help but step back again. "He is suspected of killing our school's student. I was merely questioning him for the truth," Yang Chengze angrily said. Yu Qixin indifferently glanced at Xiang Beifei, his gaze still cold but quickly shifted back to Yang Chengze and said, "Evidence. Zhu Pengfei had a conflict with him and then disappeared. If it wasn't him who killed Zhu, then who was it?" Yang Chengze angrily said. "So that means there's no evidence?" Yu Qixin sinisterly remarked. "Whether he killed him or not, he knows best. Is there still a need for sophistry?" Yang Chengze angrily pointed at Xiang Beifei. "Judgments only concern evidence." Yu Qixin stared intensely at Yang Chengze, his tone aggressive and his sinister intent evident. "Otherwise, I'll take it as you provoking without cause." He took another chilling step forward. Thud, thud, thud. Yang Chengze's face drastically changed, terrified and sweating profusely, once again forced to retreat backward. Xiang Beifei watched Yu Qixin's figure leaving, feeling puzzled. Is he helping me? This person who has been giving him trouble since the start of school would actually help him confront Yang Chengze? What's going on? Xiang Beifei didn't quite understand, as logically someone like Yu Qixin, who took pleasure in tossing him into the wilderness outside of the domain to make things difficult for him right from the beginning, should have avoided coming out and instead relished in watching him make a fool of himself while being picked on by Yang Chengze. But why did this guy stand up for him? Not only that, but Yu Qixin actually managed to drive Yang Chengze back quite directly. His methods were even somewhat overbearing. He didn't give Yang Chengze any chance to explain. So was he showing favoritism towards him? That was really strange. If it were Li Zimu or Long Guoqing being picked on by teachers from other schools, and Yu Qixin showed favoritism towards them, that would make sense. But Xiang Beifei was different. He had an old dad who bore grudges against Yuchi-shin, who had treated him like that during the entrance examination, and then Xiang Beifei had also damaged him once. Normally speaking, Yuchi-shin would have been happy to see him harassed by Yang Chengze, to have a chance to vent his anger, right? Yang Chengze clenched his fists, but he was unable to retort. Clearly, he also feared Yuchi-shin. As the referee, I should at least inquire about the situation with the missing student, and you want to stop that too? Yang Chengze pulled back on his arrogance. His voice weakened by 3 degrees, but still held hostility towards Xiang Beifei. You call that asking questions? Yuchi-shin said indifferently. Yang Chengze felt very uncomfortable under that stare and unwillingly said, Fine. I was wrong just now, but now my student is missing, and your student knows something. As the referee, you should cooperate with me in the investigation. This time, Yuchi-shin did not refute, but just stared at Xiang Beifei, his eyes full of a warning. Xiang Beifei slightly furrowed his brow. Yuchi-shin's gaze wasn't hostile. He didn't seem to be warning him to make sure he hadn't done it, but rather to be careful with his words. Seeing Yuchi-shin's silent acquiescence, Yang Chengze immediately looked towards Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei, Zhu Pengfei disappeared after he met you on the mountain. You must agree with this, Yang Chengze said. You have spent 500 influence points to exert subtle influence on Xiang Beifei. Yang Chengze had only spent 10 points against Tang He earlier, but now he was not stingy with his system value when dealing with Xiang Beifei. He couldn't beat Yuchi-shin, and if he couldn't hold on to the moral high ground, he'd be completely helpless against Yuchi-shin, who was acting all high and mighty, and might even be grasped by the handle by Yuchi-shin. Xiang Beifei, thoughtful, nodded and said, We did indeed meet Zhu Pengfei on the mountain. Your words have affected Xiang Beifei. He acknowledges your statement, and your influence increases by 99, still not breaking even. That's why he didn't like using this ability at will in the first place. However, Yang Chengze didn't care anymore, because Xiang Beifei had begun to be influenced by him. So, I think you killed Zhu Pengfei. Do you admit this? Yang Chengze's words were very vague. He wasn't asking, but instead presenting the facts to Xiang Beifei, using them to influence Xiang Beifei's mind. He purposely glanced at Yuchi-shin, smirking to himself. As long as Xiang Beifei admitted it next, Yuchi-shin would have nothing to say, and he could take advantage of the situation. After pondering for a moment, Xiang Beifei looked at Yang Chengze and said, Zhu Pengfei had UR-level protection. Do you think I could kill him? Yang Chengze was startled. Wasn't Xiang Beifei influenced by him? Why didn't he speak as Yang Chengze had intended? What surprised him even more was that Xiang Beifei actually revealed the matter about UR and Zhu Pengfei. He knew of Zhu Xinjue's identity and wasn't surprised that Zhu Xinjue had UR-level items. But the problem was this was a major issue, because Zhu Xinjue had once committed a capital crime, was captured, and was bailed out through Zhu Yiji's efforts. Zhu Xinjue was now Zhu Pengfei, and due to his reworked identity, in order to lay low, Zhu Yiji temporarily didn't treat him as a member of the Zhu family, at least not until a few years later when people had forgotten about the highway killer incident. Then he could take his grandson back. But if people knew that Zhu Pengfei had UR-level system items, that would be fishy. With UR-level help, it meant Zhu Pengfei knew someone at the UR level. All awakeners of the UR level in the Union could be counted, and if investigated deeply, it would expose Zhu Yiji himself. What nonsense are you talking about? Where would he have any UR-level protection? Yang Chengze barked. Xiang Beifei knew what Yang Chengze was thinking, and the reason for his urgency probably wasn't lost on him either. Therefore, he understood how to shut Yang Chengze up. After all, Yang Chengze had actively absorbed a wave of his own influence. Some people cannot be influenced by Yang Chengze just because he wishes it so. I've been thinking about this because when I met him, he was with a desolate beast, displaying the desolate beast's tentacle abilities, and he openly declared his possession of UR items. I was wondering how he came to own UR-level items, Xiang Beifei slowly said. Yang Chengze's face darkened, his expression shifting as he barked again. That's sheer nonsense. Not to mention that he doesn't have those things. If he did have UR-level protection, how could you possibly have killed him? You've hit the nail on the head, Xiang Beifei simply said. I indeed couldn't kill him, but I did kill many desolate beasts. Yang Chengze was annoyed and said, Then how do you explain that he's gone after having been seen with you, and only you remained? You should be asking the desolate beast that question, not me, Xiang Beifei said. Nonsense, Yang Chengze shouted. You have spent 1,000 points of influence to exert subtle influence on Xiang Beifei. I am not spouting nonsense, Xiang Beifei said calmly. Your influence on Xiang Beifei has failed. Yang Chengze gasped in shock. His subtle influence had failed? To think that was 1,000 points. He had gone all out this time to maximize his influence. Could it be because of Yu Qixin's protection? Yang Chengze looked angrily at the indifferent and icy Yu Qixin. This bastard. When did he find out that I was going to make a move against Xiang Beifei? This was an oversight. Yu Qixin was also a bona fide SR-class awakener, much stronger than him. But Yang Chengze had always thought Yu Qixin was a space-type awakener and had not anticipated that Yu Qixin had the ability to help others resist spiritual power control. Meanwhile, Chang Exinen said, I can testify, and so can anyone from Yongzhou University. Zhu Pengfei colluded with the desolate beast. He's the one who brought it here, and he wanted to kill us all. That's right, I can testify too. Di Sheng also stepped forward. Everyone deeply despised Zhu Pengfei's actions. He had brought a heap of trouble upon them on the mountain just now. Yang Chengze looked at SSR-ranked Chang Exinen, feeling annoyed inside. Previously, when Yu Qixin was absent, he could have suppressed these students using his authority as a referee, but with Yu Qixin present, his subtle influence would be blocked by Yu Qixin, which was problematic. Xiang Beifei continued, Let us then discuss another issue. Why does Zhu Pengfei of Yenzhou University possess the strength of a meridian opening? Yang Chengze was startled. Tang He immediately spoke up. Exactly. Zhu Pengfei has the strength of a meridian opening phase. Yet you allowed him to disguise as a qi-controlling student to participate in the competition, severely undermining the fairness of the contest. The fact that he killed Ho Chengguo is indisputable. We can also testify that Zhu Pengfei indeed had the strength of a meridian opening phase just now. Chang Exinen said gravely, I can testify as well. At this moment, another person emerged from the crowd behind them. Everyone looked closely and saw that it was SSR-ranked He Qiutong from Qingzhou University. He Qiutong appeared to be severely injured, with pale lips and an exhaustion that suggested she had been fleeing for her life ever since entering the Withering Woods. However, she possessed a tremendous ability to hide, being able to control colors and become invisible, which must have allowed her to escape harm for a while. An SR-ranked meridian opening participating in a qi-controlling group competition? Yu Qixin's piercing eyes stared coldly at Yang Chengze. Yang Chengze started to panic. Qingzhou University, Yongzhou University, and Liangzhou University could all testify. This was very disadvantageous for Yang Chengze. Chen Baiwen had already mentioned to him the issue of Ho Chengguo being killed by Zhu Xinjue. Ho Chengguo was SSR and Qingzhou University was certainly not one to let things slide, so it was nailed down that Zhu Xinjue or Zhu Pengfei had the strength of a meridian opening. If this matter was investigated further, it could only get worse for him, and Yenzhou University's reputation was at stake with allegations of cheating in the elite university competition and apparent ties to those mysterious desolate beasts, all substantiated by a multitude of student testimonies. To continue harassing Xiang Beifei now would extend beyond UR, and even damage Yenzhou University's reputation. At this revelation, he broke into a cold sweat. He cursed himself for his idiocy. He had been too focused on thinking about that worried about being blamed, while overlooking these equally important issues. If Yenzhou University was found cheating, the other elite schools would certainly not let it go. Each elite university had alumni scattered throughout the alliance. The Zhuzhou Alliance wasn't just managed by a UR like Zhu Yiji. Each school had its own UR alumni in the alliance. The entire alliance was already replete with intricate networks of relationships centered around URs, forming various power factions. Zhu Yiji might be a UR, but that didn't mean he could monopolize control over other schools. Now what to do? What else but deny it all? This is utter nonsense. This is ludicrous. There is no way that is true. Zhu Pengfei definitely doesn't have the strength of a meridian opening phase. There must be something fishy about this. Yang Chengzi shouted again. He made up his mind. No matter what, he couldn't admit to these allegations. In that case, it seemed impossible to give Xiang Beifei a hard time anymore. Because if the investigation continued, he couldn't bear the consequences. Yang Chengzi's mind raced, contemplating the present situation. Xiang Beifei said, "Now the doubt is clear. Zhu Pengfei is at the meridian opening phase. He killed Ho Chenguo, and he framed the other students, luring them to the desolate beasts and then collaborating with them to attack us. The desolate beasts we just encountered had the strength of the meridian opening phase and could parasitize human bodies, disguising themselves as people, making them indistinguishable from the Real. So, Professor Yang, what do you think is the most likely explanation for the oddity surrounding Zhu Pengfei?" His eyes flashed with a barely visible light, which drilled directly into Yang Chengzi's eyes. Yang Chengzi, having absorbed system points from Xiang Beifei and added them to his total influence, meant that Xiang Beifei could now control Yang Chengzi's subtle influence system and turn it against him. Yang Chengzi had much higher cultivation than Xiang Beifei, making it difficult for Xiang Beifei to complete control him. However, with just a little guidance, it was still possible to stealthily nudge the adversary's thoughts in the direction he wished to see. Upon being spoken to by Xiang Beifei in this manner, Yang Chengzi's mind was quickly occupied by a deeply ingrained idea. Only one explanation could resolve all issues. The answer was on the verge of emerging. Zhu Pengfei. Zhu Pengfei might have been parasitized after entering the outer domain wilderness. Yang Chengzi blurted out impulsively. That explains it. No wonder he was able to summon a desolate beast to pursue us, and even sprouted tentacles afterwards. Turns out he was already killed by the desolate beast. No wonder he had the strength of the meridian opening stage. The professor's words really opened my eyes. Xiang Beifei spoke succinctly and didn't forget to offer some praise. Yang Chengzi's eyes gradually brightened. Indeed, only this answer could solve all the issues. Because Zhu Pengfei's strength at the meridian opening stage was first discovered when he entered the foreign desolate domain. Thus, if anyone questions why Zhu Pengfei had the strength of the meridian opening stage, they could assume that Zhu Pengfei was killed by the desolate beast after entering the foreign desolate domain and then impersonated by the ghost mustache of remnant visage. In that case, his cheating in the competition couldn't be pursued, and Yenzhou University wouldn't be denounced by the other 8 universities. Explaining the revelation of his meridian opening stage cultivation level in the murder of Ho Chenguo also made sense. The SSR Ho Chenguo of Qingzhou University was killed. They could argue that it was because the desolate beast, disguised as Zhu Pengfei, was too cunning, instigating conflict within the two teams, leading to their mutual destruction. Thus, the death of SSR Ho Chenguo had nothing to do with Yenzhou University. Qingzhou University had no means to pursue Yenzhou University's responsibility. Whether Xiang Beifei ended up killing Zhu Pengfei afterwards no longer mattered. Yang Chengzi couldn't seek justice for Zhu Pengfei anymore, for he had no evidence that Xiang Beifei killed Zhu Pengfei. Perhaps Zhu Pengfei was indeed just disguised by a desolate beast? This explanation actually addressed all of Yang Chengzi's current concerns. The UR seeking justice for his grandson wouldn't target Yang Chengzi but would have to pursue the matter with the League officials for negligence, blame the cunning desolate beast, and Yenzhou University's reputation would also be preserved without the fear of denouncement from other universities. Thus, everyone was happy. I really have to thank this young man. A few words from him clarified the matter and resolved all the troubles. Yang Zhe heaved a big sigh of relief. He originally planned to pin the blame on Xiang Beifei, yet with Xiang Beifei's guidance, this idea was completely crushed. In his subconscious, blaming Xiang Beifei for this incident became pointless. We are honest people who value evidence. The more Yang Chengzi thought about it, the more he believed that Zhu Pengfei was killed by the ghost mustache of remnant visage. Exactly. Zhu Pengfei must have just been unlucky. His death had nothing to do with Xiang Beifei at all. Yang Chengze now even thought that Zhu Xinjue being killed by the desolate beast was a stroke of luck. Let's put this matter aside for now, and quickly check on our numbers to see exactly how many students we are missing. Yang Chengze didn't dwell on the issue anymore, and even his hostility towards Xiang Beifei dissipated. Somehow, he even felt grateful towards Xiang Beifei. It turns out, this young fellow wasn't as annoying as he seemed initially, quite a talent and pleasant to talk to. I really like such students. Yu Qixin stared coldly at Yang Chengze but said nothing more. Xiang Beifei also didn't continue speaking, because further probing into this matter was pointless for him too. SR's Yang Chengze and that UR couldn't possibly be brought down by such an issue. SSR, who had inadvertently led to the deaths of hundreds of martial artists, had the upper echelons of the league pleading for him, let alone a powerful UR awakener. Given the UR status within the league, Zhu Yiji wouldn't likely suffer any real damage. At most his reputation would be slightly tarnished, and he would ceremonially concede fault with 3 symbolic toasts, hardly painful or itchy, and the league might even forcefully suppress such a scandal using UR-level measures. But after this, Xiang Beifei would have to face Zhu Yiji's retaliation. Currently without sufficient power, there was no need to confront Zhu Yiji head-on. Xiang Beifei also wasn't in a hurry to deal with Yang Chengze. Now using Yang Chengze's subtle influence system to overtly control Yang Chengze's thought process meant that he held an ace up his sleeve. Since Yang Chengze had connections with Zhu Yiji and, as the system logs showed, had received many benefits from Zhu Yiji, Xiang Beifei could well leverage Yang Chengze in the future. Just by saying a few words, Xiang Beifei could make Yang Chengze subconsciously regard him as an ally, providing him with much information about Zhu Yiji. Truthfully, Xiang Beifei had no immediate designs against the League or any intention of overthrowing Zhu Yiji. Experience exclusive tales on Novelbin.com. However, since the League had sent an SSR of literary Dao like Wei Tong to manage their martial arts college at Liangzhou University and intimidate Elder Luo, Xiang Beifei had to keep some tricks up his sleeve. When necessary, he would naturally stand with Elder Luo to deal with Zhu Yiji. The occurrences in the Withered Forest were too bizarre, and Yang Chengze took others to demarcate a safe area, leaving many students to attend to their injuries. Only Yu Qixin and Xiang Beifei were left. Suddenly, Yu Qixin waved his hand, setting up a barely visible boundary around them, shielding all eavesdropping. Xiang Beifei found himself encircled but wasn't too surprised. This was his first time alone with Yu Qixin. After a pause, Yu Qixin coldly said, "Don't admit to anything." "What?" Xiang Beifei looked at Yu Qixin. "No matter who you killed, don't admit to it," Yu Qixin said. Xiang Beifei furrowed his brow. He certainly wouldn't admit it. Admission was unnecessary. It would bring significant trouble to both Liangzhou University and himself. What puzzled him was Yu Qixin's behavior. "I thought you were someone who abided by the rules." Xiang Beifei stared at Yu Qixin's system interface. Yu Qixin possessed the blade of the 7 sins, and he abhorred those who committed the 7 deadly sins. Anyone guilty would be suppressed by him. Could such a person really bend the law for personal gain? That depends on whom it concerns. "I don't understand," Xiang Beifei said. Yu Qixin's gaze shifted to Yang Chengze, who was treating other students' injuries in the distance, and he slowly said, "Rules are only used to deal with those who follow them." "Huh?" Xiang Beifei pondered over those words, faintly grasping something. After a moment of silence, Xiang Beifei spoke again. "I recall that you dislike me. You're quite self-aware." Yu Qixin looked at Xiang Beifei disdainfully, scanning him from head to toe. His eyes filled with the same scorn as when he first met Xiang Beifei. "From your name, your hair, your appearance, to every part of you, there is nothing that pleases my eye." Yu Qixin did not hide his disdain for Xiang Beifei. "Then why did you stand in front of me when he was giving me a hard time?" Xiang Beifei asked. Yu Qixin not only stood in front, but he also took action against Yang Chengze, causing Yang Chengze to be terrified. It felt as if he was standing up for Xiang Beifei. Normally, Xiang Beifei could only see this kind of protective attitude in Elder Luo and Yi Changfeng, who naturally defended Xiang Beifei. But Yu Qixin? Just ask anyone randomly, and they would know it was unlikely. Yet, he did take action and was extremely biased towards Xiang Beifei, giving Yang Chengze no chance to trouble him. Yu Qixin snorted disdainfully, his gaze wandering off into the distance, as if he was observing something. After a long while, he withdrew his gaze, stared at Xiang Beifei with eyes that seemed to suggest Xiang Beifei had asked a foolish question. Because only I am allowed to give trouble to the students of Liangzhou University. Yu Qixin's tone was cold, as if stating a simple truth. Xiang Beifei looked at Yu Qixin in surprise. Outsiders can't intervene? They're not worthy. He seemed reluctant to talk anymore with Xiang Beifei, turned around to remove the barrier, and then walked toward the stone forest to handle the current situation, as he was also a referee and to assist. Xiang Beifei watched this person's retreating figure curiously. Suddenly, he recalled the words Yi Changfeng had mentioned to him on the plane about Yu Qixin. Yi Changfeng said that Yu Qixin was a very problematic person, petty, annoying, and loved to torment students. But when it came to major issues, he was never ambiguous. This guy was indeed strange. It seemed that Xiang Beifei never really understood Yu Qixin before. Yu Qixin and Yang Chengze had been notifying others to come over, and soon Xiang Beifei realized. He had already left the marquee domain of the second danger level. This was the tranquil domain of the third danger level. No wonder the SOS Talisman and Forfeit Talisman were useless. Ghost Whiskers of Remnant Visage must have used some method to transport them thousands of miles away to the tranquil domain. The distance was too great, making the SOS Talisman and Forfeit Talisman ineffective. Many students, after entering the withered forest, encountered attacks by treemen and fled to the mountains. Some students were quite capable of escaping. After all, everyone was either SR or SSR with very strong system abilities. Facing ghostly visage and treemen, even if they couldn't defeat them, they could still manage to escape. However, they were originally scattered across the withered forest, but after the forest disappeared, they reappeared and did not vanish with the disappearance of the forest. So, presently, Yang Chengze and Yu Qixin were gathering all the scattered student teams. The news was sent back, and within an hour, many more teachers hurried over, including Yi Changfeng and Elder Luo. Only after seeing that the 5 students from their school were all safe did they breathe a sigh of relief. Is everything okay? Elder Luo asked with a grave expression. Yes, everyone is safe, Xiang Beifei said. Elder Luo then carefully checked each person again to ensure that no one was harboring any hidden injuries, although Sun Hushuan had already examined them. I thought the Alliance would react quicker. When our Forfeit Talismans and SOS Talismans became ineffective, didn't the Alliance notice? Xiang Beifei asked. With the Alliance's capabilities, something as critical as Forfeit Talismans and SOS Talismans should always be monitored. The matter is complicated. The Alliance detected it right away, but a beast tide suddenly erupted in the area you were at, and countless desolate beasts became very aggressive. We were about to end the competition and pull all of you back, but then we found that students from 7 schools, including yours, couldn't return. Yi Changfeng spoke with a serious expression, beginning to recount the events. Yi Changfeng explained the whole incident from beginning to end. Ghost Whiskers of Remnant Visage had first set up the withering forest at the forefront of the Thunder Sea. The student teams who were searching for the landmine dragon entered the withering forest, some without initially planning to enter but were lured in various ways. The Alliance soon discovered that out of 9 student teams, 7 teams could not be contacted. Sensing something was wrong, they immediately dispatched everyone to search for the students. However, at that moment, a sudden surge of desolate beasts erupted. The frenzied tide of beasts surged up like madness, diverting the attention of the Alliance. The Alliance could only deal with the beast tide while sending people to search. The second dangerous zone, the Marquee Domain, mostly comprised beasts at the Meridian opening stage, whereas the Alliance was made up of elite university professors and senior leaders who easily crushed the beast tide but also delayed the optimal time to act. The students were all teleported away from the Marquee Domain. The wilderness outside the domain was vast. These 7 universities were teleported out of the original Marquee Domain into the Tranquil Domain, with no direction or clues, so searching for them was like finding a needle in a haystack. Later, everyone formed teams and allocated search areas. Elder Luo and Yi Changfeng unfortunately went in another direction, while Yu Qixin just happened to come this way. However, by the time he arrived, the withering forest had already disappeared. Elder Luo looked at Xiang Beifei with a serious expression and said, "Tell me in detail what you have encountered." Xiang Beifei did not hide anything and recounted his entire route, only omitting the incident in the abyss since too many people were present and the conflicts between Qingzhou University and Yenzhou University had nothing to do with him. Then they went on to the Withering Forest and he explained it again, omitting the matter of the Spirit Gathering book. Withering Forest? Elder Luo pondered. Do you have any recollection of it, Elder? Xiang Beifei asked. Elder Luo seemed to be recalling, and after a long pause he said, I can't be certain for now. It needs a full investigation before any conclusions can be made. Since other students had not yet been found, they did not return immediately, but rather they formed a massive safety barrier on the spot, dispatched some people for patrolling, and sent others to continue searching. The Alliance took account of the students they had found. The 7 schools that were teleported included Qingzhou University, Liangzhou University, Yenzhou University, Jingzhou University, Yongzhou University, Yangzhou University, and Jizhou University. Shuzhou University and Yuzhou University were luckier. Their teams did not encounter Ghostly Visage, and they were pulled back by the Alliance when they were preparing to end the competition. Thus, the students from Shuzhou University and Yuzhou University were mostly safe. However, the remaining 7 schools suffered severe damages. Qingzhou University lost 3, leaving only Tang He and He Qiutong. Yenzhou University also lost 3, leaving only Yu Hongbao and Chen Baiwen as the 2 SSRs. Jingzhou University lost 3 people, Yangzhou University lost 2, and Jizhou University lost 1. This freshman contest brought a heavy blow to the elite schools. In total, they lost 1 SSR and 11 SRs. Only Liangzhou University and Yongzhou University had all their members alive. Yongzhou University had one who was knocked unconscious, but the highly skilled professors had revived him, so it was not too severe. Find your next adventure on Novelbin.com. Xiang Beifei looked at the Alliance officials and professors from various elite universities before him, pondering slightly. Many people had searched and returned but had found no trace of Ghost Whiskers or the Withering Forest. Even SSR Sun Hushuan, who initially encountered Xiang Beifei, returned empty-handed, looking quite frustrated. However, disputes had also started among the elite schools. The focus was directed at Yenzhou University. It was said that a student from Yangzhou University had been deceived by Zhu Pengfei, who led them to Shi Renmei, resulting in their attack by Ghostly Visage. Therefore, the professors from Yangzhou University harbored deep hostility towards the people from Yenzhou University and began condemning them. Yang Chengze, a professor from Yenzhou University, was being angrily stared at by many school teachers, feeling quite guilty. He immediately repeated Xiang Beifei's excuse. The Zhu Pengfei they encountered was not our school's Zhu Pengfei, but a disguised one. Our school's Zhu Pengfei was killed by a desolate beast shortly after entering the wilderness outside the domain, and our school also lost 3 students. Who should we approach to reason with? This excuse was not convincing and was merely one-sided. The other school's teachers were not willing to let it rest. Yang Chengze again shouted loudly, If you don't believe it, you can ask Xiang Beifei from Liangzhou University. He can testify. The one who framed your students was not the real Zhu Pengfei. The real Zhu Pengfei was killed by Ghostly Visage as soon as he entered the wilderness outside the domain. Xiang Beifei remained silent for a moment, then nodded slightly. That is correct. The Zhu Pengfei we encountered was indeed a beast with no humanity, conspiring with the desolate beasts. He didn't make it too explicit, but he made his point clear. This matter still needs thorough investigation. But at that moment, a woman in a tight outfit stepped forward. This woman had a graceful figure, appearing to be in her late 20s, with her long hair tied up in a bun, wearing a form-fitting bodice, looking sharp and efficient. She was a member of the Juzhou Alliance and an SSR. Host, Mu Yiqing. SSR level, Words and Deeds Global System. Realm, late stage of God refining. Words and Deeds, a language-based system. The function of this system is clear and relates to speech. Yang Chengzi spoke pleasantries in front of you. Speech value plus 56. Yu Qishun spoke coldly in front of you. Speech value plus 61. Yuan spoke angrily in front of you. Speech value plus 98. This included all sorts of talk. Idle chat, jokes, sarcastic remarks, truth, lies, dirty language, boasting, whispers. Any action related to speech could strengthen her. She was also able to suppress others with their own words. Proficient in many languages, she could identify what type of speech a person was using. Then, utilizing the sound waves produced by their speech, she could interfere with their thinking, pressing down on opponents with that particular type of talk. This time, the desolate beast is very cunning. The students' one-sided testimonies can't prove anything. The situation is now severe. The desolate beasts you're facing are all very powerful. So we must first make sure that your thinking hasn't been influenced by the desolate beasts, she said. Mu Yiqing surveyed everyone, her gaze lingering on Xiang Beifei for a moment. Although the students here had strong system attributes, their cultivation wasn't high. The ghost mustache of remnant visage was an intelligent creature. If the students' resistance to desolate beasts wasn't strong enough, they might be unknowingly manipulated into lying. I hope every student will cooperate with our inquiry, and I ask all professors to be present to listen to their experiences. You are all experienced seniors. We urgently need you to deduce everything about this desolate beast from the students' responses. We are encountering this type of desolate beast for the first time. We need to pool our wisdom, classify this desolate beast, and then see if there's a way to find its lair. Mu Yiqing continued. That's exactly my intention, Elder Luo said. Ren Zhonghai darkened his face and was the first to speak up. All the university professors had no objections. With such a significant incident, it was indeed necessary for everyone to investigate the matter thoroughly. A light appeared in Mu Yiqing's hand, and a sphere emerged into the air. This sphere has the ability to discern truth from falsehood. You may begin asking questions now. If a student is influenced by the desolate beast, leading to insincere speech, there will be fluctuations in the sphere, she said. Mu Yiqing was essentially a very powerful lie detector. She could distinguish whether a person was telling the truth or not. The sphere was actually a manifestation of her ability, called Word Spirit. It could record everything others had said and then determine truth from falsehood by analyzing their words. Let's start with the students who have directly confronted the desolate beast, she suggested. Ren Zhonghai glared at Xiang Beifei intently. Xiang Beifei had crushed Ho Chenggu, humiliating Qingzhou University fiercely. Now, not only was Ho Chenggu dead, but they had also lost many SRs, and their school's team had disintegrated. On the contrary, Liangzhou University's team was unscathed, which made him very suspicious. Why is it that other schools suffered such heavy losses, yet your team is safe and sound? Did you make some deal with this intelligent desolate beast to avoid disaster? He asked. Ren Zhonghai's question was very sharp, pointed directly at Xiang Beifei. When he asked this, many people frowned, especially the people from Liangzhou University and Yongzhou University. Their teams had narrowly escaped disaster in the withered forest, and now they were being accused of making deals with the desolate beasts. This was unbearable. Elder Luo said coldly, Ren Zhonghai, what are you implying? Trying to sling mud? I'm just following the procedure. Ren Zhonghai snorted, saying, what if they have been controlled by the desolate beast? Who can be sure? This is just official business. Whether it's true or not, it can easily be found out. Find out my ass. Throwing around big accusations from the get-go, is that official business? Whose side are you leaning towards with your questions, and you still claim it's official business? Elder Luo was equally blunt with Ren Zhonghai. Ren Zhonghai's question was clearly intended to be provocative, unilaterally speculating that the Liangzhou University student team had some trick up their sleeve during this competition. Professor Luo, Please do not interfere with our investigation. If they have nothing to hide, just say so, and whether they're telling the truth or not, we will find out soon enough. What are you so afraid of? Ren Zhonghai snorted coldly. At this point, Zhao Yuba from Yongzhou University was visibly annoyed. Whether it's Liangzhou University or our Yong University, we will cooperate in the investigation, but we must not be treated as criminals. They are victims, not suspects. I won't allow you to treat my students like this. Zhao Yuba, a professor at Yongzhou University, is also a man of understanding. When their school competed against Liangzhou University, they got to choose not to confront Xiang Beifei, and he was the one who was overjoyed and got carried away. Although Di Shang from Yongzhou University was later defeated by Li Zimu, after the Withering Forest incident, he also asked his students about what happened. He was very grateful to Xiang Beifei from Liangzhou University. Without his warning, his own team might have had a grim fate. Therefore, both emotionally and logically, he had to stand by Professor Luo. Otherwise, once Ren Zhonghai finished questioning Xiang Beifei, it would be their turn at Yongzhou University. I am just being thorough in investigating this matter. After all, everyone's teams have been severely damaged, while yours have not suffered at all. It is difficult not to associate them with something else. Given that ghost mustache of remnant visage is so cunning, how could he possibly spare your students? I must investigate all possibilities, Ren Zhonghai said coldly. Elder Luo's eyes bulged. Stop talking nonsense. As the host of the Outer Wilds, Qingzhou University did not thoroughly investigate the desolate beast situation, leading to this series of tragedies. Instead of reflecting on yourselves, you start by interrogating my students like criminals, asking if they colluded with desolate beasts. So, survival equates to complicity? Have you got no sense at your age? This was initially just about Liangzhou University students assisting with the case and answering questions. Xiang Beifei and the others were survivors and victims. But with Ren Zhonghai's attitude, he was directly treating Xiang Beifei and the others as suspects. Victims and suspects are fundamentally different. If this wasn't stopped, it was clear that Ren Zhonghai would only ask more outrageous questions next, and then lead everyone to target Xiang Beifei and his group. Xiang Beifei and his group would be mired in all sorts of suspicion, criticized by various universities. Elder Luo would not allow his students to be treated as suspects without cause. However, Ren Zhonghai snorted. You are so eager to protect your students. Are you afraid of the truth being uncovered? Discover exclusive content at novelbin.com. Are you insinuating with your insinuations because you want to shift the blame onto my students? Could I then also interpret it as you having dealings with the desolate beasts, and now, frightened of being found out, you're biting back first? Elder Luo said, matching him blow for blow. Luo Yunxian, watch how you speak. Do not smear others without basis. Ren Zhonghai said, quite irritated. Now you know how frustrating it is to be falsely accused? When you suspect others, it's all business, but when I suspect you, it's smearing. Quite the double standard. Well, let me tell you, this is how I speak. Elder Luo roared suddenly, and a powerful aura emanated from him like a stormy surge, sending Ren Zhonghai stumbling several steps back. You! Ren Zhonghai hadn't expected the other party to actually dare to make a move here. Don't like it? Hold it in. Elder Luo bellowed, his voice thunderous. He wanted Ren Zhonghai to experience the feeling of being slandered and unable to retort. Ren Zhonghai, seeing Luo Yunxian actually get angry, shuddered in his heart and reflexively held back the words he was about to say. He dared not speak anymore. Ren Zhonghai could usually taunt Luo Yunxian and boast about how outstanding his students were, but that never touched Luo Yunxian's bottom line, and Luo Yunxian couldn't be bothered to act on it. However, Ren Zhonghai was very angry because his SSR students were in trouble, and as the host, he was under great pressure too. He hadn't realized he'd crossed the line. But once he touched Elder Luo's bottom line, there wouldn't be an easy end to it. The others were also intimidated by Elder Luo's domineering aura. His sudden outburst due to Ren Zhonghai's attitude caught everyone off guard. Those who initially harbored suspicions towards Liangzhou University and Yongzhou University extinguished such thoughts. For a while, no one dared to gossip at the scene because the issue indeed lay with Ren Zhonghai. It was fortunate enough that the students survived. To label them as suspects was excessive on Ren Zhonghai's part, and Elder Luo's anger was justified. Most people there were well aware of Elder Luo's temperament. He was just that kind of person. However, to suggest he had any connection with desolate beasts was impossible, as it was he who had led everyone to stem the tide of beasts and protect Jojo in those years. They understood that Elder Luo was not angered because he felt guilty but because his students were being unfairly singled out and labeled. Yi Changfeng also spoke out indifferently. President Ren, by your logic that survivors are suspects, may I interpret it to mean because the teams from Shuzhou University and Yuzhou University were lucky not to enter the Withered Forest and none of their members were injured, you would not suspect them of orchestrating the entire operation? Will you also treat them as criminals later? Such accusations would implicate everyone. Yi Changfeng's words were also quite clear, reminding the professors from Shuzhou University and Yuzhou University. The professors from Shuzhou University and Yuzhou University changed their expressions slightly. They immediately grasped what Yi Changfeng meant. Indeed, with Ren Zhonghai's attitude, once they started interrogating Liangzhou University's Xiang Beifei and others as suspects, they would soon view these two universities as the masterminds behind the ordeal. Everyone present in Jojo held a respectable status. Why should they be slandered by someone like Ren Zhonghai? At this moment, Sun Hushuan, who initially found Xiang Beifei and the others, spoke. Professor Ren, it's acceptable to investigate, but the principle should be objective and fair, not subjective speculations with personal bias. Please refrain from asking such questions. Sun Hushuan was a highly respected SSR within the alliance and also the chief referee for this event. His words carried significant weight. The current situation was clearly not right. With such an incident, everyone was furious. Elder Luo's intimidation made Ren Zhonghai much more subdued. Seeing the situation turning sour, Mu Yiqing said, Everyone, there's no need to be angry. This incident is something none of us wanted to see happen, and the professors, being senior members, must want to investigate this matter thoroughly. President Ren is just overly anxious because of the trouble his students are in, and spoke too harshly, which surely wasn't his true intention. How about this? Let me ask the questions instead. Mu Yiqing was also an SSR, not very old and nowhere near Elder Luo or Ren Zhonghai in cultivation or qualifications, but as someone holding a significant position within the alliance, she handled matters quite appropriately. She also graduated from Qingzhou University, naturally giving Ren Zhonghai a way to step down. If you want to handle this officially, you can ask however you want, but if you are biased, I am not so easily fooled. We should be working together to investigate the desolate beasts. But if any of you dare to start disputes over personal grudges, causing internal strife, just try me. Professor Luo's words were filled with an indisputable tone, and his sharp, eagle-like eyes swept over everyone present, making everyone feel uneasy. Whether it was the SSRs of the Alliance or professors from other universities, none dared to meet his gaze. As a commander who had once led martial artists to fend off the beast tide, even though he had retired for many years, his deterrent power was still present. Once he exerted his authority, he took control of the entire situation. His word was more effective than that of any high-level personnel in the Alliance. Lucky for me, I'm just an accessory on the big fish's leg. Xiang Beifei looked at the imposing Elder Luo and felt quite emotional. Elder Luo, usually at school, would either nap, eat sunflower seeds, or listen to the birds and count ducks, occasionally bursting into song and throwing Xiang Beifei into the Yellow River. Truly a big idle fish. But when he got serious, he was an absolutely untouchable figure. Daring to decapitate an SSR in front of Alliance members showed he was not just an ordinary person. With such a protective elder by his side, Xiang Beifei was spared a lot of trouble. Until he gained strength, he was content to be just an accessory. Of course, Xiang Beifei, this accessory, was not so simple after all. Mu Yiqing, who seemed adept at dealing with people, spoke politely. Certainly. Please rest assured, Professor Luo. What you said is most correct. Now is a time for unity, and internal strife is not allowed. She looked at Xiang Beifei, pondered for a moment, then said, "Because you are the team that succeeded in surviving the desolate beasts, especially student Xiang Beifei, as the leader of both teams, ensuring that both teams were safe is highly commendable." Mu Yiqing looked at Xiang Beifei with appreciation and continued, "So, before I start questioning, I must clarify. It's not that I don't trust you, but I want to make it clear. Sometimes, high-intelligence desolate beasts might control you to say things against your will, and you might not even realize it. That is to say, you might think you are telling the truth, but in reality, your memory has been altered by the desolate beast, and you are unaware that what you are saying is not the fact. However, you can rest easy on one point: you are currently low in cultivation, and even if you unintentionally lie, it won't matter as long as it's not intentional. The Alliance will not pursue it, as everyone can testify. You just need to honestly speak what's on your mind, and I will determine whether your words are related to the desolate beast or not. The power of word spirit lies in this. If a student's memory is affected by a desolate beast, leading to statements that do not match the facts, even if they believe they are telling the truth, word spirit will detect the discrepancies. This ability is effective not only against desolate beasts but also against other martial artists. Just like before, when Yu Lei tried to control Xiang Beifei and his grandfather to lie, if his control talisman and memory talisman had taken effect, causing their memories to change, they would have treated Yu Lei's false statements as the truth. And in this situation, the word spirit could immediately discern that they were being controlled. "Please proceed," Xiang Beifei said. Mu Yiqing placed the word spirit sphere on Xiang Beifei, which glowed white and pulsed slowly, faintly emitting a spiritual power circle, as if binding Xiang Beifei within a ring. She considered for a moment before asking, "I believe the desolate beast did not control you, nor did it force you to do anything by brute force, is that correct?" Mu Yiqing's question was clever. Although the essence of her question was much the same as Ren Jianghai's, the addition of "I believe" and the use of a negative form made it sound more acceptable than Ren Jianghai's straightforward approach.
"No,"
Xiang Beifei said. The spiritual power ring around him rotated, and the word spirit sphere was quiet. Mu Yiqing's system interface displayed current word spirit detection value. Truth. Xiang Beifei has spoken the truth in front of you. Speech value +2. So you did indeed rely on your excellent ability to help the team avoid the attack of the ghost mustache of Remnant Visage? Mu Yiqing asked again. "We relied on teamwork," Xiang Beifei simply replied. Current word spirit detection value. Truth. Xiang Beifei has spoken the truth in front of you. Speech value +9. Mu Yiqing nodded slightly and continued to ask, "I heard from others that they encountered you in the withered forest. Were you then kindly alerting the other teams?" "Yes." Current word spirit detection value. Truth. Xiang Beifei has spoken the truth in front of you. Speech value +1. I heard that you met 3 teams, namely Jingzhou University, Yangzhou University, and Yongzhou University. What was the situation like then? Why did Jingzhou University and Yangzhou University not trust your warning, while only Yongzhou University trusted what you said? "You should ask them," Xiang Beifei said. "They are also here." Xiang Beifei did not directly answer. Speech value +13. The other students were clearly separated. Aside from professors and teachers, the other students couldn't know what Xiang Beifei was being asked here. Mu Yiqing said, "I will ask them later, but one thing at a time. I must ensure what the difference is between your statement and theirs, so as to judge whether their distrust at the time was influenced by the desolate beast's abilities. This allows us to make the most of the collective wisdom and knowledge of all the professors present to analyze the capabilities of the desolate beast." Her words were persuasive, and even Xiang Beifei found no grounds to refute. Mu Yiqing repeated the question. "So when you met them, what was their reaction? What do you think was most likely the reason Jingzhou University and Yangzhou University did not trust your warning?" "They were more cautious," Xiang Beifei said. "So by your account, Yongzhou University's team trusted you right away and followed you because they were less cautious?" Mu Yiqing's eyes flickered slightly as she looked meaningfully at Xiang Beifei. "They had stronger judgment," he said. Xiang Beifei looked at Mu Yiqing calmly. Mu Yiqing's way of asking questions was filled with various verbal traps, attempting to coax Xiang Beifei into speaking in ways that, if he misspoke, she could seize the flaw and continue questioning. However, Xiang Beifei's manner of speaking was always clear-cut, simple and impeccable. Jingzhou University and Yangzhou University did not trust his warning due to their strong caution, whereas Yongzhou University trusted his warning because of their strong judgment. From a procedural standpoint, being cautious was not wrong. Without strong caution, accidents are likely. From the standpoint of the outcome, strong judgment ensured the team's survival. Praising each side with a word, leaving right and wrong for the present professors to judge, he did not need to explain any further. Thus, Mu Yiqing couldn't continue to dwell on this issue. Stay connected with Novelbin. Calm. Xiang Beifei, with just 2 simple sentences, effectively closed off the discussion on this matter.